Hello? Who is this? This is Roger L. Jackson, Ghostface, from the Scream franchise, and you're listening to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. So you like scary movies, huh? What's your favorite scary movie? And it better be the right answer, or I'll... Well, you know the rest. Thank you. You're such a lovely audience. We'd like to take you home with us. Or better yet, see you in your home.
You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. We really appreciate all the support. Just want to give a quick shout out to our social medias. We got the big three: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for Don't Go Out There on those platforms, and you'll find Brian's awesome artwork. And a quick shout out to our website, don'tgooutthere.com. You can find all of our interviews, episodes, celebrity shout outs, our blog, and our store. Just give that just go check it out, and you can find everything you want. And I just want to give a quick shout out to a super fan of the show, Shan. We really appreciate it. She sent us all
Yes.
She sent us all a care package of her horror cookies, and they were awesome. They looked absolutely amazing. They tasted great. And right now it's the heaviest time of the year for delivery. So heck, they've been out on delivery for over a week for me, and they still tasted good. So big thank you to Shan. Brian, do you remember what her Etsy is? I can't remember.
It's Terrifying Treats on Etsy.
There we go.
Terrifying Treats.
Very nice.
Yeah, y'all check that out on Etsy. Terrifying Treats. Big shout out to Shan. That was absolutely awesome. It's very humbling to have fans like that, honestly. So thank you, Shan. We're going to jump to the film review now. This is our third entry in the sequel month. Brother Mike's pick, 2011's Scream 4. Mike, you want to kick us off with a general overview?
Yeah, so the reason I picked this movie, one, is because I really enjoy the Scream franchise. I've made that pretty clear before. It is horror. I know we had some dispute earlier in our show run, but I think we pretty much settled that now. First of all, I just want to say I'm going to come right off the top and say I really, really love this movie. It is a really good follow-up to what I think is a classic slasher movie, Scream 1. Scream 2 we reviewed. You can go back and listen to that. But for me, this is the quintessential sequel to Scream. And I think they do a really, really good job. Kevin Williamson's script is great. At least to me, the way they mix the old and new characters, I'm a really, really big fan of. They got the casts perfect. Excuse me. I feel like they had the right old cast to come back, mixed it with a really, what I think a good young cast that had great chemistry. First of all, I just want to say, Catherine, I love you. I know you're going to be listening to this. I love you so much. You're the light of my life. But I got to come off the top right here and I'm getting it out of the way, fellas. Are you ready? Emma Roberts, Hayden Panettiere, Marley Shelton, Allison Brie, Marielle Jaff, Anna Paquin, Kristen Bell, maybe not you, Lucy Hale, Amy Teagarden, and Shanae Grimes. You can all call me sometime. Hold on, I'm not done. Obviously, the great Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox. You can also call me sometime. David Arquette, call Dustin. Anyway,
Whoa, brother. Whoa.
No, but
For an interview.
The music started playing for you to get off the stage, man.
I want to get it all out of the way so we don't have to be pervy later on. But my God, have you seen this cast? Anyway, point is, I think it's a really good follow-up to Scream. I'm looking forward to talking about it, fellas. I'm sorry I missed Aliens last week. By the way, I don't care what Dustin says. Sigourney Weaver can call me in that movie. Anyway, not the point. Point is, I have an alcoholic beverage in my Don't Go Out There cup, which you can find at don'tgoouthere.com. And I'm ready to talk a little Ghostface tonight, fellas. Let's do it. I just want to say, as much as I love this movie, I'm going to go off with one criticism right off the bat. This movie has the weirdest lighting for any horror film I have ever seen in my entire life. The late, great Wes Craven, I don't know what you were thinking with that, but it's very, very distracting sometimes. But outside of that, really great film. Looking forward to talking about it.
Dustin, you want to go next? General overview?
Yeah, sure. My general overview is that I will fight Mike Settle over Emma Roberts. Second of all,
Catherine, I love you.
Second of all, you know, Sheriff Dewey can call me sometime because David Arquette's no secret. He's one of my heroes in the industry, so it'd be great to chat him up.
I hope he's calling you to learn how to be a good cop. Anyway, go ahead.
Not in a sexual manner, but yeah, call me sometime. Also, you know, if you want to jump off the top rope and crown Mike Settle, that'd be great too. Shout out to Ready to Rumble, another one of his great films. But to Scream 4. This film, to me, anytime you get this deep into a franchise, right? So you're not just a sequel in, you're not just even two sequels in, but when you get the third follow-up to the original, which is widely regarded as a classic, as a trendsetter, as a bar in the genre, when you get to installment number 4, a lot of times there's a steep fallout or a fall off. You add to that fact that it's been so many years since the third one. You know, you wait this many years between chapter 3 and chapter 4. A lot of times that movie is going to suck out loud. That's not the case in this film. I thoroughly enjoy Scream 4. Dare I say, I love Scream 4.
Wow.
So this is one of those films that, and you know, man, I really try to step back and be objective here, but maybe I'm grading it on such a huge curve because Emma Roberts, and I do have a huge crush on her, but I think it's a very good movie. It's a very good installment. It beats out the third installment of this franchise. It's much better.
Jesus.
Which I know Mike and I, you know, we're going to talk about that later. After we've done this, we're going to get into that. That's fine. And I can't wait for the day that we review that movie, because the highlight of Scream 3 is the Jay and Silent Bob cameo.
It's the only good part of the whole movie.
Regardless, the only one. But no, I really like this movie. I like that they continued the storylines. I like that they were able to get Wes Craven to come back on board. This is the last movie that he directed, you know, before he succumbed to the cancer. Shout out to Wes Craven, a legend in the industry. I know that this movie had several rewrites because the studios and Kevin Williamson butted heads. Fuck the Weinsteins forever. Not just for that, but just because they're despicable people. But this movie is... I know that I've kind of hidden my love for this franchise. I've hidden it very well, but this is kind of one of my favorite horror movies to just throw on any given time. So there's that. You guys might not know that. Mike, I think Mike and I have talked about that, but I love this movie. I can't wait to break down the scene by scene.
Very rewatchable, Dustin. Great point. Sorry, Go ahead.
All right, Brian, let me go next.
All
right, so we just started off with 2 great general overviews, and I don't hate this movie by any means, but I kind of feel like I might be the Cabin in the Woods guy again. This movie is just, I consider it good. I don't consider it great. I'm completely the opposite of Mike and Brian. I'm not the biggest Scream franchise fan. I do like this movie, but honestly, I kind of disagree a lot with Dustin and Mike. I think after 11 years, I really think they could have done better and did a better sequel. And I'll get into it at the end with our final thoughts, because I think there's one character in this movie who has the arc set up to be a great Ghostface reveal, and I think they missed the boat on it. And I think it would have been an amazing Ghostface reveal. Not a big fan of all the meta references throughout, but I did like this movie. The cast, like they said, awesome. I like the fact they amped up the kills. It wasn't just a basic stab and they're dead. You know, they got a little extra with it, which I appreciated, but definitely don't hate this movie by any means. I'm not going to House of Wax or Joyride it or nothing, but I'm not going to say it's, one of my super favorites or anything. But go ahead, Brian.
Well, I'm the opposite of that. I absolutely love this movie. This franchise is one of. We've said it. You just said it. The franchise is one of my favorite horror franchises. Every time I pop one in, whether it's 1 or 2 or 4, I get.
Scream 3, you suck. I'm sorry.
But every time I pop one in, I get punched in the nostalgic balls, and I love it. It's most definitely my second favorite Scream, right behind the original. I love the cast. Now, would I have done some different probably stuff? Maybe, but I'll get into that. But I think the original 3 are amazing here, and especially the inclusion of Emma Roberts and Hayden Panettiere, who. I think she might be the best inclusion of a character in this franchise, besides the big 3. I loved Hayden's character. Kirby. My last few movies that we've reviewed, I've been on a tear of ranking extremely high, and I don't see that changing anytime soon with some of the movies we have coming up. And spoiler alert, that shit isn't changing here.
Yeah. No, the sequel month, we picked some really, really good sequels from some big franchises.
Next week, even so, man. I can't wait. It's going to be fun, too.
I kind of forgot to say this, but just for me personally, I kind of got some like Halloween 18 and Jigsaw vibe, just, being kind of let down by some stuff. But I do like this movie. I'm not going to rate it super low, I promise. But y'all got any more opening thoughts before we jump into the scene by
one
scene?
thing it has in common with not Jigsaw, but Saw. What is that? 7 is the fucking lighting. I know I already said this, but man,
the lighting is bad.
Very weird that they put on this film. But outside of that, I can look past it.
All right, I'm gonna need you guys to touch on a lot of the dialogue because this movie was very difficult for me. It was scene by scene with all this dialogue just to kick it off. But all right, the film starts with Sherry. She's this Lucy Hale. And another thing I wanted to say is I talked about on beginning of House of Wax, the most star-studded cast. This is the new most star-studded cast we reviewed. And the funniest thing is Lucy Hale, who was kind of the unknown then, has the most Instagram followers of all of them now. She has like 24 million followers. It's crazy.
She may have been unknown to you, but let me tell you, my wife, the Pretty Little Liars, she was on fire back then. She was Pretty Little Liars was huge back then.
Oh, yeah. But, she wasn't like Neve Campbell, I don't think. But let's kick it off. Film starts with Sherry answering the phone to a familiar voice. She says the wrong number and she hangs up. Trudy asks if she picked a movie. She picked Saw 4, and Trudy says it wasn't scary, but Sherry likes Jigsaw and his creativity. She says there's no characters alike. Sherry asks her who she's texting, and she says it's a Facebook stalker. She says that he said he'd kill her, but keeps talking to him because he's hot. Sherry tells her it's Channing Tatum's. It's a catfish profile. Another call from the same voice, and he tells Sherry he'll kill her, then hands the phone to Trudy, and he tells her that he's the last person she's ever going to see. The stalker messages her to answer the phone. They go to check the door, and the doorbell rings. Trudy yells, "Who is it?" but no one answers. She gets a message to open the door, and Sherry opens the door, and no one's there. Then Ghostface pops out into the house, and she kills Trudy. And then they kill Sherry with another Ghostface shows up and slices Sherry's throat. But it was just a movie, Stab 6. Rachel tells Chloe how stupid that movie was, and it was the death of horror. She hates on meta horror, and Chloe says she likes to stab movies, and then hates on alien movies and Japanese horror. Rachel says there's no surprise, and then gets surprise stabbed by Chloe, and then gets stabbed again. But that was Stab 7. Jenny tells Marnie she loves the movie, and Marnie doesn't agree. Marnie now comments on the franchise, and Jenny says she's overthinking it. Jenny now tells her of the franchise origins and says the 5th is the worst. Jenny says she hears a noise and goes upstairs to check it. Marnie says not to try and scare her. Jenny checks out upstairs and the phone rings. Marnie answers it, and it's the Ghostface voice. This is the last person you're ever going to see alive, but it's just Jenny impersonating. She now hears Marnie attack. Jenny goes downstairs to check it out, and she sees the phone on the floor with lights out and says she should be horror director, or she should direct horror films jokingly. She says, "Let me guess, I should walk by an open door frame to get attacked, huh?" The phone rings and says she doesn't have the app to talk like Ghostface, but it is Ghostface. Ghostface calls her a big boob blonde, and they have an exchange and says to start running. Then he throws Marnie through the window and chases her. She runs upstairs and she gets stabbed in the back. She crawls down the stairs and opens the garage door and tries to crawl out, but Ghostface shuts the door on her back, stopping her. He drags her back in and turns her over, and he stabs her into a title card. That's the first two opening scenes I got. You want to kick us off, Brian?
Yeah, sure. I love the opening. I think it's very good writing from Kevin Williamson, who is definitely in his bag with this one to me. With 2, there was all those leaks that I think honestly killed his scripts with rewrites. 3, we know they went with Aaron Kruger, but, even he was handicapped by the whole Columbine shooting that had just happened then, and Kruger helped pick up, some of the slack with this one in parts. Dustin mentioned because, the Vampire Diaries commitment Williamson had, but obviously that all made Scream 3 to me the weakest in the franchise. But, 11 years later, I definitely disagree with Nico. We get a fresh start, and I think that shows right off the bat with these scenes. We're given all this misdirection and stab intros with all of these, super relevant actresses, for the time and even now, honestly, that this whole new generation can relate to. It's fresh with the dialogue on the whole horror xenosphere at the time. And it quickly shows you once again, motherfuckers, we are Scream. We are back and we are changing the rules here. Lucy Hale, I think is great in this intro. We talked about earlier, she was known for Pretty Little Liars right here, but, she was actually originally cast as Marnie Cooper, but because of the scheduling conflicts with PLL, she took this smaller role. But hell, I think Drew Barrymore showed that shit isn't a small role, and look, I know you can say that there's, only so much you can do with a knife, but I think especially her kill right here, shit. I mean, I'm a sucker for a goddamn, great looking throat slash, and right off the bat, that's the first kill. And unlike, the other Scream movies, I think they realize, look, we got to show this shit. And I think, this is my favorite Scream movie with the kills, mostly because of that. It shows the shit. I always love, how he went from in this opening, to like a Facebook killer, to Twitter references, to voice apps. It kind of showed this progression, in a short period of time here, while almost giving you like the greatest hits of the franchise with a stab twist. I love that. In the scene where Jenny, explains to Marnie, the story about the Stab movies, she says, Stab 5 has time travel, which is by far the worst. Wes Craven actually had the idea of time travel in Dreams for a Nightmare on Elm Street 4, the Dream Masters. But the studio rejected it. And no offense to friend of the show, Lisa Wilcox, but maybe that would have been better than what we got. Maybe, I don't know. Lastly, let me say this about the opening, though. Again, loved it, but they got to tread lightly now for Scream 5 because, like we talked about last week with Fast and Furious and Die Hard, you always want to go bigger and bigger and bigger. And this motherfucker went from like a 2 in Scream 3 to like a 15 with this opening. And I hope my man Williamson didn't write himself in a corner because this was like, most Scream things, it was borderline, but I love that. But don't cross that line and get too ridiculous with that in the next one. And, that's all I'll say. But as far as for Scream 4 goes, I give this opening a 10 out of 10. And, after 11 years, baby, this Scream franchise is back with a motherfucking vengeance.
Yeah, so right off the bat, a lot of what Brian said is kind of what I have to say, but it bears repeating. This just kicks down the door and lets you know this franchise is fucking back. And we could talk about all the qualms we have with Scream 3, and there's quite a bit. But just we'll save it for a Scream 3 episode, which I'm sure at some point down the road, probably hopefully 12 years from now, so I don't have to watch that movie again, we'll do it. But Scream 4, right off the bat, it's very right up my alley. Mike loves meta for a fucking reason. I love this opening. The double fake out, and I know some people have a complaint with it, and I can kind of see where they're coming from, but I love the suspense of this opening scene. And the very first time you see it, you don't know that you're in for a fake out. And I like that about this movie. Of course, loses a little bit of its steam upon rewatchability, but I still feel that it's executed really, really well. And, like we talked about with Lucy Hale and Sinead Grimes, like those two, I think they do a really good job of being, kind of Ghostface fodder, if you will. They're going to die. That's kind of the deal. But I like the scene with Kristen Bell, and I'm drawing a blank on the other name, where, it was all, thank you. It was all a movie where, and I like the turn that Kristen Bell makes. And look, this is not Frozen. This is a completely different Kristen Bell. I mean, she's stabbing people in the gut. Now, the complaint I've always had with Scream is, I know I've said it a million times, stabs to the face, stabs to the gut, stab to the ass. Like, that's kind of the Scream deal. I understand that, but I feel like if it's done well, which I felt like this one was, didn't see it coming, I loved it. And then we get to the actual movie that we get here. And first of all, if anybody's seen the show Friday Night Lights, most people's least favorite character in the entire show is Julie Taylor. So I was just waiting on her to die. Blonde with big boobs. If you don't know, that's what they call her on the movie here. Just waiting on Julie Taylor to die, because that's fine. But I think this opening scene is really good too. It's very typical Ghostface, but it has a modern twist, and it's very meta. It talks about the different genres of horror at the time, and it kind of went into my rule of 5, which I've talked about on this show, where the 5th installment in most franchises is the worst one somehow. Halloween 5 stinks. Friday 5 stinks. Nightmare on Elm Street 5 stinks. Like, 5th movie in most. Saw 5, I'm mixed on, but it's better than the other ones I said, that's for sure. But my rule of 5 is kind of holds up here, where the 5th movie normally sucks ass, and so I'm a little scared for Scream 5. But anyway, I think this is really good. I think the acting is really good. The cast is good, and we get introduced to this new cast of characters. Hayden Panettiere is probably my favorite character in this whole movie. She is the Randy here, the us. Like, she reminds me of us sitting around talking about horror movies. She's a cool character. She plays it well. Emma Roberts is great. This cast is really, really, really good. And I think they do a great job of getting us ahead, like having a modern approach to the old Scream story. Now, there is some stuff in later on this movie that kind of sticks to the playbook of Scream that I have a little bit of an issue with, but again, I'm kind of like Brian. This puts me back in a nostalgic place where, all right, I'm in a Scream movie now. Even with the weird lighting, I'm watching a Scream movie, and I think the opening is great, especially the first time you see it when you don't see a lot of this stuff coming.
Yeah, so I like the opening scenes here because it follows the precedent set in Scream 3 and Scream 2 with the stab. You're getting the it's going to show you the scenes of a stab movie, which is loosely based off of the Woodsboro murders. I like how there's so many direct references to real life things in this scene. So you get the Facebook reference. They directly say Facebook. A lot of times movies steer away from that because they don't want to pay for the rights to even mention a real life thing or a real life movie or a real life actor. But you get Facebook, you get a Saw 4 reference, you get a Channing Tatum reference, and then even there's some backhanded references at some other things, like when they talked about the Asian ghosts. It's kind of poking at the Ring and that sort of franchise.
Grudge, yeah,
the Grudge. And so I really like how they did that, because too many times they could have easily said, "Oh, that's not a real guy. That's that guy from that movie," and just name something fictional. But no, she just straight up said that's Channing Tatum. So I appreciate that because it adds some authenticity to the scene. The Stab 7 is shocking to me was shocking to watch for the first time, because you're like, you've seen the Stab 6 intro, and if you follow the way that the Scream 3 opened, you know that you get one fake out and then we're done. Like, these are the real characters in the movie. But nope, they're like, oh, here, these two girls are just characters in Stab 7. But it was even more shocking because as you're watching them, when Chloe killed Rachel, when she stabbed her in the stomach there, that's shocking as shit, because that breaks the rules of the Scream franchise, of the Stab franchise. It's not someone in a ghost face mask. It's just straight up, okay, you talk too much, I'm going to stab you in the gut. And so that adds a nice bit of shock factor there. But then after you realize, oh, this is Stab 7, and then you get the next set of girls, You're like, oh my God, was it stab 8? And so that they did a good job of the old rope-a-dope there with me, because I thought I truly expected this to be stab 8. And I was like, this is going to be non-ending until we see Sydney on screen, until we see Gale and Dewey on screen, until we see a familiar face. I'm not buying in. This is fake. This is going to be another stab movie. But I thought that was nicely done. They're like, okay, no, we fucked with you enough, but this is the real shit. These girls are really dying. There's a couple jump scares in this movie that just irk the shit out of me. And one of them is in this set of scenes when she's running away from the real Ghostface and she goes to the unfinished section of her house. She's got the door closed. She's leaned up against the door. And then he just jerks the door open and it opens towards him. Like that killed me, because the way she's leaned up against it is like she's holding the door shut. Like he won't be able to push it open, but it's a pull door. And it makes you laugh when you watch it back, but it's also a very frustrating jump scare for me, because he didn't just jerk it up and stab her. There was a chase scene that followed it, so it was like anticlimactic there. But I do like how they also, as he's chasing her and he stabs her in the back and she's trying to escape through the garage, you get the little tip of the cap to the original Scream when the girl, gets caught in the garage door. They don't kill her with the garage door, which is not a believable death to begin with, but they don't kill her with the garage door here. Yeah, that was a terrible death. But they don't kill her with it, but I like how he pushed the button to make it go back down on her and then walk over to her to finish the job, because he realized that's not going to do it. Like, that, to me, is the filmmakers acknowledging that was kind of a fuck up in the first film. No one really bought that, so let's do it the right way here. I appreciate that. And so overall, I don't think, obviously, the opening scene doesn't live up to the original opening scene in the Scream franchise, because, my God, what can really? But it's a damn good opening scene here. And I'm automatically in, because, like I mentioned, Scream 3, like Mike mentioned Scream 3, like Brian mentioned Scream 3 is not very good. So when you come back 11 years later and you're like, here, please like this, you better do something in that first 20 minutes that's going to grab me. And they did it. So tip of the cap.
And Nico, before you start back up, if Scream 3 is the worst movie in your franchise, you're doing okay. Like, it's bad, but it's not Freddy's Dead bad. It's not it's not Halloween 5 bad, Halloween 3 bad. If Scream 3 is the worst movie in your franchise, you're doing okay.
Yeah,
now we're playing with power.
Okay.
Cool graphics.
I can still watch Scream 3 and enjoy it. It's not like it's an unwatchable piece of shit like Halloween 3.
Halloween 5.
But,
Halloween 5 as well.
Yeah, Halloween 5.
All right, Jason, take some Manhattan.
I knew it, you son of a... Anyway.
Tread lightly.
Tread lightly. My ass. You're about to shit all over Scream 4. I don't want to hear this.
I'm not going to shit on it. All right, Sydney is back to Woodsboro for a book tour and is greeted by little Ghostface on the light poles. She blames kids in it being the 15th year anniversary. All right, now we meet Dustin's guy. Dewey wakes up and he gets ready for his day. He goes to get in his sheriff SUV, and Kirby speeds right past him. Kirby gets to Jill's house. She honks the horn for her, and she says, "Please don't kill me," because Trevor, her boyfriend, called her. And now Olivia, the neighbor, gets in the car and says that he called her too. Says that he thinks Sydney coming back to town distracts her from how sorry he is. Kirby tells Jill that Sydney is the reason she loves horror movies. Jill comments she doesn't even know her cousin, and then Jill's phone rings. It's Ghostface. What's your favorite scary movie? And I think we all forgot to mention this in the opening. Shout out to Roger L. Jackson. He's amazing. The voice is he's one of the best characters in this. He might be the best character, honestly, the voice. What's your favorite scary movie? She hangs up on speakerphone, after a conversation, and Kirby almost drives through a red light and gets hit while she's distracted and shook up. Olivia says Marnie got the same call. Deputy Judy and a city worker are taking the Ghostface off the poles, and she tells Dewey flirtingly she wishes she was helping him investigate these cases back in the day. She offers him lemon squares and then gets a call to report to the Randall's house. It's bad, real bad. Gail watches Sydney on a talk show talking about her new book, but Gail, she's at her computer and she has a horrible case of writer's block. Robbie approaches Jill, Olivia, and Kirby live streaming and asks them all, what's your favorite scary movie in honor of the anniversary? Kirby calls Charlie a dork, and he says that she wants me. Kirby tells Jill she likes Charlie, but only to torment him. Trevor asks Jill to talk, but she ain't having it, saying that he betrayed her. Gail goes to the bookstore where Sydney is talking to her fans about her new book. The two ladies meet and hug. Dewey walks in now looking stressed out. He tells everyone to remain still and silent. There's a phone taken from the scene of the crime at this location. He calls the number, and it's in the trunk of Sydney's rental car. There's bloody pictures of Sydney's book release cover with a phone and a knife. It's officially a crime scene, they say. In class now, several phones start to ring, and they get the message of Jenny and Marnie being murdered last night. The news is now reporting on the kills on the anniversary. Gail shows up to the sheriff's office, and Judy won't let her into Dewey's office. The two start to argue, then Dewey brings her in his office, and Gail slams the door on Judy. He tells her she's not a reporter anymore, and she says that she helped him solve this case 3 times. But Dewey's a sheriff now, and that she can't help no more. She tells him she's going rogue then, and she exits the office, telling Judy her lemon squares taste like ass. Deputy Perkins approaches Dewey, telling him that 2 high school students are at the station saying they got a similar call. Sydney goes to the room with Dewey and Judy to interview the 3 girls. Kirby thinks she's going to die first since she didn't get called like Olivia and Jill did. Dewey isn't sure how to answer her. Sydney says she needs to leave town, but Judy says she can't, and Dewey tells her everyone's a suspect. Everyone's a suspect. Judy says she's a material witness since there was evidence in your car. Dewey says she'll have 24-hour police protection. All right, Brother Brian, go ahead. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I have the most written about this group of scenes, so bear with me because, I mean, the other ones I've shortened it down some. But look, first off, let me bring up the Scream franchise and the soundtrack. I've always loved the soundtrack to these movies. This one's no different. While I do miss Red Right Hand in this, which to me is the Scream theme song, but I think the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is really good, man, and I think it's shown off even with just Sid being introduced, and it was really a throwback to those awesome '90s soundtracks to me. Also right here is where I wrote down the same thing as Mike. About the lighting. It's as many times as I've seen this movie, it's not anything that stood out to me that I noticed. But upon doing research, I can't take credit for it. I read it 3 or 4 or 5 times on people talking about how the movie's very lit and very distracting, and I actually saw someone compare it to J.J. Abrams and his lens flares, which that doesn't bother me. But now that I know that, I paid attention, and oh my God, it's so distracting, especially in this opening scene with Nev. And, I'll point out later too with some shots in Hayden, but everything's just way too bright. So, if you didn't know that, like I didn't, watch it now, you'll notice it and it'll bother you. So you're welcome. I love the introduction to Sid, Gail, Dewey. It's like catching up with old friends. Nev Campbell, besides looking amazing, she's just as good in this yet again. And I know Nico doesn't like that the franchise, revolves around her and not the killer, but it works for me with this franchise. And unlike when I see Laurie Strode again, like I actually smile every time when she comes on the screen, and I'll say this about the big 3 in this movie. I think it does a very good job of doing something that the other 3 didn't have to do, and that's balance an old and new generation of characters. And to me, I think it's done brilliantly. Unlike the other 3, especially the third, like you never feel like the big 3 were ever really in danger. Like you don't really expect them to die, especially after part 2. But, I think in this one, you feel with the whole new generation, new rules thing, they don't feel safe. And I love that. And this is a perfect example of how you can revisit something more than a decade later. And if it's done right, which I think this was, it feels like you never left. I'm going to give you a weird example, but Michael appreciated it. But American Reunion, I think that's a bond with, that there's this bond like that you have with this cast, and if you grew up with these people, and that's the same bond I have with this cast. Dewey waking up to Beverly Hills Cop ringtone, come on, that's fucking perfect. Sidney Prescott's book, Out of Darkness. Look, by the way, this damn thing is floating around out there. Some of these props used in the movie, they're selling some of them. There's a handful of them. I've seen them a bunch of places. if anyone out there listening to this, I want one so bad. I've been trying to get my hands on one of these damn books for like 10 plus years. Someone out there, please help me. I need this in my collection. Just wanted to put that out there too.
Also, if anyone has some of Emma Roberts' wardrobe from this film,
whoa. Come on.
I would purchase it. Anyway, go ahead.
Milkman.
Anyway, all right. So, I briefly said in my intro, but we're introduced into Penetaries, Kirby. I love her so much in this. She's the best of the new cast. I said it before, it's saying a lot because this new cast is really good. Lastly, I'm going to say this. At this point, I don't really care for Deputy Judy. Look, she grows on me, but I don't know what it is because Marley Shelton's perfect. I mean, come on, you're talking about Wendy fucking Peppercorn from The Sandlot here. So, it's not her, but I think it's the too much ineptitude in the Woodsboro Police Department, almost to like a clownish. It's almost to like a clownish point in this movie. And like Christina Ricci actually did a screen test for this role, and I'm not even sure she could have made me like it more. I don't know, but I know that that's probably not real informational for me to just say, oh, I don't like this character. I don't know why, but whatever. I mean, it's just me. She's definitely works as some like tension between Gale and Dewey, but yeah, I don't know. She grows on me a little bit, but you're not cheating on your wife if you eat my lemon square shit. Like that's some dialogue right there. And Nico mentioned that the lemon square tastes like ass. That made me laugh. And I also did want to point out Kirby's line when she said, it's the killer's voice, from Stab or from Your Life. I don't know that I loved that line too. Yeah, so that's all right.
I thought it was great. I love that line. Okay. Well, first of all, okay. So I love and I've already kind of said it where I love the mix of old and new. I think they do an excellent job of reintroducing us to Sidney Prescott, Dewey, who, by the way, Brian, you touched on it. You called it clownish, but I think Gail Weathers had it right when she said Barney Fife. Anyway, so now Dewey's the sheriff. And by the way, shout out to Dead Meat James for calling Gail and Dewey gooey as a couple. I think that's fucking funny. Great couple name for those two. I thought it was great. But yeah, obviously we're 11 years removed from Scream 3 or 10 or so, however many it is. And you get a little marital strife. And I like that they kind of play that up, and how it all ends up, I think, is really good. And I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Brian. I like the character of Officer Judy because she's like, I'm not a fan of making everybody a red herring, even though I know that's kind of a Scream thing. So you don't know who Ghostface is going to be. But I think Officer Judy kind of works as an obvious red herring because it's clearly not going to be her. Makes no sense. But I don't know if that's the one Nico's talking about. I hope not, because we're going to have to go the War of Words on that. But I think that I like that character a lot. And I think the lemon squares thing is funny, especially when Gail says it tastes like ass. Really good shit. And I really like the dynamic of the new cast. And I think that it works so well. It reminds me, or the chemistry reminds me of the first Scream. It really, really does. I almost like it more. And I'm going to get into that later, where I just think that Kirby as a character is great. I think that Jill as a character is a little, milquetoast, but obviously that kind of, fleshes out later on. So I'm totally fine with it. And I like that we get a freaking Culkin in this movie. Hello. Freaking Macaulay Culkin's brother in this fucking movie. Pretty sweet. Anyway, not the point. Point is, I like his character too, because again, he kind of reminds me of us in a weird way, except I'm not going to lie, not to brag, but I was probably a little bit cooler than him in high school. That's okay. It happens. But I like the whole horror movie expert guy, and then you get Kirby that's kind of like this weird romance that shouldn't work, but does work somehow. So I really, really like that. I love Sydney's role here, where she doesn't really want to be here. She's only coming back to Woodsboro because she wrote this fucking book, and God bless her. And the reason, Brian, I think you smile when you see Sydney, maybe not so much Laurie Strode, is because we've watched how much shit Sydney has been through. Like, she's been through some shit and is a badass out of it, okay? Like, she's, like, even in the first movie, I just feel like Sidney Prescott is just more of a badass. In the first one, the second one, the third one especially, like, I just feel like she's been through a lot and we've got to grow with that character. And so I'm the same as you, Brian, where going home to these characters, even Deputy Dewey, I get a nice nostalgic attachment to that, and I think it's really good. And the dynamic with the new characters, I think, is really good. And how 2000 whatever is it, where all the texts are going off at the same time when they find out everyone's murdered, like that's like trending on Twitter. Like that's the kind of thing that's, even though it was 2011, it's very topical now. Like it makes a lot of sense, relevance wise now, where that's how you find stuff out is over the phone, and everyone's phone's going off at the same time. That made a lot of sense. I think mostly Scream is ahead of its time, and I think that it kind of works right here. And again, the scene in the car, a lot of people seem to have a little bit of an issue with, but I like that Jill, to me, they do a good job of making you think that Ghostface is coming after Jill because of the way she answers that phone in the car. To me, that I like that scene. I think it works. It plays into how the movie turns out later. And so there's a lot of good here. The dialogue, like you said, I've already talked about the lemon squares, but even there's kind of a weird animosity still with Gail and Sydney. It's almost like we're kind of acting like the third movie doesn't exist in a weird way, because in that movie they had already kind of patched things up, and in here they're not adversaries, but there's still some weird tension between Gail and Sydney, even though that I thought we had kind of gotten over that. So I like that that's kind of there. It makes Sydney a little bit of a suspect, in my opinion. And I think, well, we'll talk about Scream 5 at the end, but I think that plays well too. So really great set of scenes. Lighting is very, very distracting. I must point that out every time we talk, because Wes Craven, as great as you were, terrible decision.
So in this set of scenes, first of all, Michael, I don't like your tone when you said even Deputy Dewey. But anyway, this set of scenes, I'll be honest with you guys. The book tour to me seemed a little odd. It doesn't seem very consistent with Sydney, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just doesn't seem like, I don't care how long it's been, it doesn't seem like she would be necessarily anxious to write a book about it and then go back to her hometown where she hasn't been in years. They mentioned in a deleted scene that she hadn't been back there since her father died, apparently. But regardless, it doesn't seem very consistent with Sydney's her desire to forget her past, for her to write this book and then go back and sign copies of it in the bookstore on the same day that there's Ghostface hanging all over the streetlights and everything. I don't know. It didn't distract from the scene, but it just was a little minor nitpick, I guess. Shout out to Dewey, man. You got you a wife. You got you a promotion. You're now the sheriff. You got you a dipshit dweeb of a deputy. And Judy, you're moving up in the world.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
You're not wrong. I can admit that. He was a little bit of a dweeb, but he was also the savior of the franchise. Yeah, I said it.
Oh my
I'll be honest with you.
Weary kind of say the day in Scream 2. That's fine.
You said, yeah, that's your opinion, pal. You mentioned that you really enjoyed this set of scenes, and you highlighted the call that Jill got, how they did a good job of making you think that Ghostface is targeting Jill because she got that phone call. But I'll be honest with you, that's something that also that I took points away for. Not necessarily that they're making you believe this, but the fact that she answered the call and it was Ghostface, and she didn't answer it on speakerphone. Later in the movie, it seems weird to me, because why would quote unquote Ghostface waste this call to Jill, knowing what we find out at the end of the film? Why wouldn't she answer it on speakerphone? Because in my mind, if you know that you're in on this with this person you're calling, when you call them, you could just be bullshit and be like, hey, what's the weather? What are these dumbasses in the car talking about? Hey, put me on speakerphone. I'm ready. And then she puts on speakerphone. And, it's just one of those things that, like, from a realism standpoint, if I'm in on something with you, Mike, and you're in a car with Nico and Brian, I'm not going to call you and live that gimmick if you don't have me on speakerphone from the jump. So, that's just something that I picked up on, a little nitpick again. I was very relieved that Gail's hair did not reprise its look from the previous. Oh, sorry, that was not meant to be said out loud. No, shout out to Courtney.
We're looking for a new co-host here, pal.
Am I wrong?
That hair in Scream 3 is god fucking awful. Oh.
Exactly. Courtney Cox looked phenomenal in this film. The best she's looked in any of the films, and that's not a easy feat to accomplish because she's a beautiful lady.
Ooh, Scream 2 is tough competition.
How the hell? Yeah, that's true. But by 2011, she got the enhancement. Anyway, how the hell did they hear this phone ringing inside the store when the phone was in the fucking trunk outside on the curb? That's a big... how loud is that ringtone, Sydney? Are you deaf? Like, god dang. But anyway, that was a major flaw that I found in this scene because they're all inside. They're inside the bookstore. And they're like, he's calling it, and then everyone hears the phone ringing and turns towards the door. Get the fuck out of here! She got King Kong in the trunk, but it's just a ringtone. This set of scenes though was a good set of scenes, despite my nitpicks and my flaws that I was just saying, because the dialogue was good. The little the introduction of the new characters and the way that they intermingled with the old characters and the familiar faces. It was something very comforting about seeing Gail, Dewey, and Sydney. It's just something very familiar about seeing them. But then you also introduce all these new characters who turn out to be great. And then just their chemistry on set was great. And you mentioned the tension between Gail and Sydney, or you picked up a little about that. There was also some tension between Dewey and Gail because she was like, let me in on this. I helped you solve these before. You couldn't have done it. She didn't say it like this, but you couldn't have solved these without me, you dumbass. And that's very much a real feeling because in real life during this time, Courtney Cox and David Arquette were going through a separation, and they divorced shortly after this film was released. And so, tip of the cap to them for being able to put that aside and coexist on be consummate professionals on the set of this film. I hope that they're able to do the same, and I have no reason to believe otherwise, that they'll be able to do the same as Scream 5. But while you're going through a separation and an upcoming divorce, that's difficult. I've been through a divorce. I know how tough that can be. So the fact that they were able to put that aside, but it also kind of played into it with, there was some real life tension there that came across that actually helped their portrayals in this film because their characters were written to not fully be on the same page at all times. So I thought that came across in a very pleasant and positive way. Overall, good set of scenes. I'm still just like, hell yeah, this Scream 4 11 years later is really living up to it at this point.
All right, Sydney's manager, Rebecca, gets a call and is ecstatic about the two deaths,
call me sometime.
ready to capitalize on it.
Jesus.
And she geeks out when she sees Gail. Gail ain't feeling this conversation. She tells her how Gail was her 90s, and they comment on her character in Stab 3. She asks Gail if she's going to revitalize her tarnished brand. And, Gail, you know how she is. She just leaves. We're at Jill's house now. Sydney and Dewey are chatting, and Kirby says Sydney is so pretty from everything she survived. Kate says she has scars, which is Jill's mom. Kate says she has scars too, and no one ever asked her about her scars. Jill says no, she meant knife scars, and Kate just blows it off. Sydney asks Dewey how Gail's been, and Dewey says there's not much to write about. It's a small town, and it's been hard on her. Dewey recites a line from Sydney's book, and they smile, and he leaves. Sydney says it's nice to see him, and that they've been through a lot. Jill walks in her room and is jump scared by her boyfriend, Trevor. He asks why she's in the same house as Sydney. He asks about her call from the killer and says she'd be safer with him around. Sydney walks in, and he's about to leave, and he says that he's happy to finally meet her in person. Sydney tells Jill she reminds her of herself. Then Deputy Judy appears from the shadows and tells Sydney they were in high school together and tells her of the plays they did together in drama club. But Sydney doesn't remember. Judy leaves and Perkins gets in the car with Deputy Hoss. And I wrote, Perkins comments on how hot the high school girl is. Come on now, Officer Perkins, a little creepy. Olivia and Jill are watching Shaun of the Dead and Olivia calls. Olivia doesn't want to be in the same house with Sydney. Jill gets her phone and calls Olivia, doing a horrible Ghostface impression. Trevor calls Kirby, but it's not Trevor, it's a Ghostface voice. He keeps telling her this isn't Trevor. He wants to talk to Jill. Ghostface asks how's the movie, and he tells her it's Shaun of the Dead, and they start to freak out, and he says that he's in the closet. Kirby opens the closet, but no one's in there. But then he jumps out, he's in Olivia's closet, and he stabs her through the hand. Then he throws her into the drawers in the mirror, then stabs her back and throws her on the bed, stabbing her guts. Sydney runs outside for the cops, then runs to Olivia's house and breaks in. Ghostface throws Olivia through the window now, and he looks across the street. Sydney sees a dead body on the bed and the blood on her walls. She answers the call and asks if he has the balls to come after her. He tells her that she's going to suffer. Ghostface appears behind Jill now and cuts her arm. Then Sydney attacks him with a picture frame, and he goes to stab her, but she throws him down the stairs. She kicks his face, and the cops show up, but of course, Ghostface makes it out in time. Sydney calls for Jill, but she doesn't want to talk to her. Then Trevor, her boyfriend, shows up conveniently and comforts Jill. The deputies walk in and call in to the sheriff, and Sydney tells Perkins to go check out upstairs. All right, Brian, you want to kick us off with those two scenes?
Yeah, Dustin was talking about the real life romance, but that Rebecca and Gail conversation where you get meta with the convo about the real life romance or Stab 3 romance with Gail and Dewey. Look, Williamson's killing it with this dialogue. I loved it because I love the whole meta thing. I mean, you know that. That moment between Sydney and Jill, and her saying, Jill reminded her of her. It's such a real moment before the shit starts. Like, they're giving you a lot of red herrings too, especially in this moment. Of course, with the boyfriend angle and the way Sid looked at Trevor, when he was leaving the window. And like Mike brought up, Deputy Judy, lurking in the darkness, kind of giving you the info that she went to high school with her. Williamson knows that you're all the time trying to figure out the killers in this. And I think that they do a really good job with the misdirection without going overboard, which we know it can happen looking at you, Scream 2. Look, I know Ghostface isn't one person. It's been like 7 at this point in the movies. But the phone calls in this movie, Nico brought up, friend of the show, Roger L. Jackson. He is so great in this. Like, his voice, so iconic. But in this one, it's more intense, and it's like it's stepped up a notch. The phone calls are much more violent. The tension stepped up. That Olivia kill is great. When he says, I never said I was in your closet. It just, speaking of violent, like, again, Mike kind of touched on this. Say what you want about the lack of, creative kills. But again, this is one franchise I don't mind that with, because it's never been about the kills. But shit, Olivia's is another one here where she's just like stabbed over and over with blood everywhere. And then he like just hangs her ass out the window and literally guts her on the bed. Like, I think that's fucking great. That crime scene is violent as hell. It looks like something out of 7. I thought it was tremendous. And let's talk about Sydney's character arc. She's right, just steps right into that badass Sydney Prescott, where we've left her. She's not even scared of Ghostface, challenging him right off the bat. But boom, Roger L. Jackson or Ghostface, hitting her back with the "I'll sew your eyelids so you can, see me stab you in your fucking face." I mean, even Sid's like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" Like, and her character in this one is not like, it's not only played so well, but it goes from like badass tough girl to, for the first time since the first one, to me, she's broken down in this movie. And I'll kind of go into it again in the final scene, but she's badass, but she is broken in this one and like torn down again and again with with none of the original cast feeling safe in this for the first time. Like, you think, oh shit, like, okay, Sid's actually in some danger here, especially when they're fighting and you think maybe she's about to like sacrifice herself for Jill. Speaking of Jill, I know you guys have touched on it, but I love Emma Roberts as well in this. She's great. I mean, she comes from, Hollywood royalty with being, Julia Roberts' daughter and all, but she's got
And her
the
father
chops.
is a great actor in his own right. Shout out to Eric.
Okay,
Sorry.
Eric, there you go. She's got the chops
Look at this
regardless,
big ass. Look at this suck up over
What the hell? Come on.
Anyway, her being so good, like it makes me wish, honestly, like we would have gotten her character before. Like it would have been some, in one of the first couple of movies, maybe she would have been a kid or something, or just something that I wish would have made me care about her character even more, even that little extra bit. Someone that would have been like a pathway or a bridge, between the old and the new cast. That link. That's a little bit of wishful thinking, but it does not in any way diminish the performance at all from her, especially her and Hayden. I think they're both absolutely tremendous in this.
Yeah, so you mentioned something that I also picked up on, and it was kind of, for me, the only giveaway of who Ghostface was the intensity of the voice. So I'm glad you said something about that too, because that's something that I really did notice in this film. It made me kind of think, okay, it's got to be somebody younger. So none of the older red hair, like none of the old cast, like once I kind of picked up on that, I kind of like threw them aside and thought, well, I don't think it's them. I think it's somebody younger that's a little more in touch with what the horror scene is like, so your eyelid shut and all that stuff. Like that is very torture porn, very, kind of the kind of way that horror went at that time was very grotesque and had, a bunch of just a really, a bunch of sick shit, especially since the last Scream. So to me, that was kind of an indication of where we're going with this Ghostface. But like you said, it made for a much more intense, much scarier Ghostface to me. So shout out to Roger Jackson. Like you guys said, I think it's great, much scarier than, at least the last Scream, which again, Scream 3 is its own set of problems. But a couple other things that you said is this is probably my favorite version of Gale Weathers. She's snarky and it's not bitchy like it kind of is in Scream 1 or the first Scream. Like I love the comebacks that she has in this movie, how she kind of goes back at Dewey. She's going back at Rebecca. Like I love Courtney Cox in this movie. I think this is probably her best portrayal of Gale Weathers to me. I think she does a great job. And, right.
I agree
mean,
with that.
To me, she's the most comfortable in the Gale Weathers role in this film. And I think the way her and Dewey and everybody kind of play off each other, the older cast, the way that she plays off the younger cast, here a little bit later, I think is really good too. And Brian, you said something that I agree with. As much as I get annoyed with the lack of creative kills, and I understand that criticism, Olivia's death is very, very good. I love everything about that scene. I love the reference to watching Shaun of the Dead, when they're upstairs. Emma Roberts, I'm not going to say anything else, but what I will say, I think she plays this. I think she plays this scene really well with her shitty Ghostface impersonation. Really, really good, especially when we know what's coming later. Like, I just think it's really, really, it's good. And I didn't say your closet. Like that is really, that is a great line that Kevin Williamson put there. Like, I don't know if that was him or somebody else, but I just love that so much. And the death is brutal. The kill it's gnarly. And from the first Scream to this one, we've taken it up a big notch here with the gore. And I think that they probably could have done a little bit more with it, given the fact that it was 2011 and all the Saws and Hostels that kind of come out since then. Maybe we could have done a little something more with it. But in this scene, I think it's really, really well executed. Kind of plays off the fact that, how they're kind of calling Sydney the angel of death and all that, or, whatever they called her, where, should have been Final Destination. Kind of. I mean, wherever Sydney goes, people do die. And I think that they kind of play that up. I like the way they play that up. Yeah, I agree with you, though, Nico. Very pervy of Officer Perkins. I mean, we did see that girl just leave high school. I mean, I know we've kind of told them all to call us sometimes, but we know their ages now. It's all good. It's all good, But in this movie, she's walking away from a high school earlier. I don't know. Kind of weird. Anyway, really, really, really good job. on the Olivia death scene. One more thing I want to point out is I like the little conversation with Sydney and Dewey, because we're kind of used to seeing those two characters at a little bit of a younger age, early adult. Now they're real adults and they're talking about real life, struggles and stuff. And I think that showing that they still have that friendship is important to establishing what comes later in the movie, where why they're still in this thing together. There's somebody after Sydney and Dewey will go to whatever lengths to try to protect him, even though he may not be that good at it. So really, really enjoyed this set of scenes, especially the Olivia death. Job well done. Probably a little bit of a spoiler, maybe my favorite death and it's not my favorite death in the franchise, but it's damn close.
Okay. So Rebecca, when we get introduced to her, Rebecca reminds me a lot of Debbie from Scream 2. How she's just like overly enthusiastic and how she approaches Gail for the first time and gets to meet her. And so I thought that was a nice callback, because Gail was annoying as shit. And it just instantly got me to dislike and not trust Rebecca. Even though Rebecca is not related to the murders and she's obviously not ghost-faced, you find out that she's not in Sydney's corner the way that she should be. And it made her death an easier one to swallow, in my opinion. You get another stupid jump scare with Trevor. Like, God dang it. Stop with the jump scares. This franchise is good enough to not have
Trevor
those,
exist
whatever.
Time, but anyway.
Yeah. Much like, who was the killer in Scream 3? What was his name?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, much like him. We forget he
Roman.
exists. Exactly.
Roman
That was there the whole time. Ooh.
Yeah. So, we get a kind of a weird and ominous scene with Sydney talking to Judy, and I don't really like how they try so hard to make us think it's Judy. Like, I get it, everyone's a suspect, and this movie or this franchise usually does a good job of making everyone seem suspicious, but this one seems like they try a little too hard with Judy for my taste. But it's whatever. I too wrote down that Perkins is a pervert. Like, Jesus Christ, man, he's in high school, or she's in high school. You're sworn to uphold the law. Whatever. Even if she's a senior and she's 18, it's probably not morally correct. Anyway, you pervert. We get a great scene, just a fantastic scene with Olivia, Kirby, and Jill. I too love the fact that that whole scene, the dialogue on the phone, when she's like, she thinks it's Trevor, it's not Trevor. We get another reference to a real life movie, Shaun of the Dead. Like, I appreciate that so much, and it goes back to the first movie when they're what movie's playing in the background or on the TV? They're watching the
Halloween.
Yes, so I like that. This franchise has been consistent with that, which that was another horror classic. But whatever. Shaun of the Dead's not necessarily, but it is another meta-filled movie.
Stay
so
tuned.
I like the little nod there. Stay tuned. I like that. The whole, I didn't say your closet, and then like that shit was tense. That is a classic Ghostface moment, because the element of surprise is always there, and when she opens the closet, you get this sigh of relief. But then when they turn around and they see Olivia just getting the shit kicked out of her in her own bedroom, like that was a very tense moment, because what can you do in that point? Like, you're upstairs in your house and you're looking across the street, one of your best friends. It was like, it reminded me honestly of Nightmare on Elm Street when Rod's getting killed across the street.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing you could do, right? And so I appreciate that. Now, I will say, last thoughts on this set of scenes, and I'll pass the ball back to Nico, but I don't ever want to hear y'all say Dewey's a bad cop, because these two cops are the worst cops in the history of film, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So,
if Dewey's the leader, I mean, you can only expect them to be not good.
oh, Jesus. All right, I give up.
It's kind of like Florida State football. That's what it is. All right, anyway, let's go.
Do you have anything else to say, Dustin? I'm sorry. I interrupted.
No, you're good, brother. You're good.
All right, Sydney walks outside, and we hear like residents blaming her. Dewey asks the two cops what happened. They apologize and they tell their story, but he has them leave. Robbie is live casting at the hospital and naming off the victims and says the stab movies are coming to life. Gail tells Robbie to turn off the camera and wants to work out a deal. She wants their help to solve the case. She offers a visit to the club, but Charlie wants Sydney. She's the star. Doctor tells Sydney she's okay, and Rebecca tells her that she has an offer for 3 more books and numerous interview appearances. She calls Sydney a victim for life and calls her readers downtrodden fucks. She only cares about money, and Sydney fires her. Rebecca is in the parking garage now, mocking Sydney, saying she'll call her back, then gets a call as she finds her car. It's Ghostface asking for Sydney. Her car alarm goes off, and he says it doesn't sound like she's in the hospital, and he says that he'll put her in the morgue. She gets in her car, and the phone rings again. She doesn't answer, and the car won't crank. Then Ghostface lands on her hood. She cries for help, gets out of the car, and runs towards the door back inside as her alarm goes off. But the handle to the door breaks, and she gets stabbed in the gut by the charging Ghostface. Sheriff Dewey is taking questions from the media, and Gail asks him about the murders, and then Rebecca's body lands on the news van. I'm sorry, Dustin. Then he climbs on top and checks her pulse like a fucking idiot because she's obviously dead. Gail says she may have a lead, and you don't, and let her know when you're back on Team Gail. Charlie introduces Sydney to the group, and she asks Robbie about the video blog. Charlie says that's the one thing the killer's missing, uploading the kills to live on the legacy. They then say they're not accusing each other. They comment on remakes and the rules of horror. Charlie says to be gay is the only way to survive a modern horror movie. That's not Charlie. I'm sorry, that's Robbie. Gail asks how they know the killer is working by the rules of a modern horror. Gail asks if a party is going on tonight. Stabathon. And Sydney says they need to call it off. Gail asks where it is, and they don't tell her, so she and Sydney leave. Jill tells Sydney she feels like she's on house arrest. And I wrote, it sounds like living in 2020. Sydney tells her she knows how she feels and apologizes about Olivia. Jill asks how she handles it and being stared at and all the attention. Sydney says she tries not to think about me and focus on the people she cares about. She thanks Sydney for saving her since she barely knows her and questions if she'd be able to do the same. Jill calls Kirby, who's going to Stabathon, and she says Trevor's there, but Jill says that's not his scene. Kirby fitting to get wasted for the both of them. All the attendees are dressed like characters from the original Scream movie. Gail arrives with a ghost face mask on, placing hidden cameras everywhere to spy on them. Charlie and Robbie are chatting with the attendees, ready to kick things off. Gail goes upstairs and plants another camera. She then goes to her car and watches the footage of the live feed. She sees the camera feed being blocked off now, and a ghost face mask appears in front of one. Gail calls Dewey and tells him about what's going on. You do a remake to outdo the original. How meta can you get, she asks. She urges him to get out there, and it's a win-win for them both. She hangs up and says she has to fix her equipment, and then Dewey turns his cop lights on. All right, Brian, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, again, I love the balance with the new and the old generation and, not prioritizing any of them right now. You get Robbie and Charlie and Gail scene and that whole live web blog introduction and the meeting with the old school reporter. And I thought that was a great exchange, which, by the way, I wouldn't have minded those two being the killers either, to be honest. I love Jill, and I'll get into that later, but, I love this group of scenes for really showing that cast balance anyway. Cobra Kai does this very well, as well as the new Saved by the Bell, where like they really balance the old generations but still give you character development across the whole board. Like this scene with Sid and Rebecca and firing her, like it's such significant writing in a movie where you're sitting here like waiting for the next kill and who done it. Like her saying, "You're a victim for life, embrace it here." Like to me, like that's such a powerful line. That's like the whole backbone of her character arc. And like, now Rebecca's death, we've seen parking garage deaths a million times in movies. To me, like the best part about this is the call where, Ghostface says, "You are the message." Like otherwise, I just feel like that whole scene was a lot of the same, and a little ridiculous, actually, with him jumping on the car. I mean, if she hadn't dropped the keys, drive off, run his ass over. I mean, it's not like, which I'm not real sure why she gets out of the car anyway. She's holding her keys. So I don't know. Like that whole death scene to me didn't do it for me, but it was, however, a nice touch from the, hey, stabbed, to like, yeah, your ass is stabbed, and now I'm throwing you off the fucking parking garage into the press conference, bitch. So I liked that. Like, the lighting stands out a lot, actually, in these scenes, like with that whole distracting glare I talked about, especially in the movie cinema club scene. Like, it just looks like everyone has this like bright ass light right off camera in front of their face. It's kind of it's rough in this scene. So you get the new rules, coming into play here with, now instead of copying movies, we're making our own movies. And, we get new motivation from the killers. And besides the lighting, I really like this scene a lot, especially with Gale insulting them, calling their Stabathon a circle jerk, and then going Q&A, fuck you. Oh, I love it. Yeah, Gale's great. She's in her bag for sure in this. Also, we get another great scene between Jill and Sydney and shit. Fuck you, Kevin Williamson, you beautiful goddamn genius with your big script writing dick. You make me like love Jill so much in scenes like this. Like, and then it just rips my heart out later. And lastly, the Stabathon. I distinctly remember in the review of the first one that we did like a million years ago, I think episode 3, I think we had like a discussion about no way kids are partying at these, with these murders taking place. But, I believe I said, I think that they would, but at least I appreciate here where it's explained a little bit, with it being, quote unquote underground and hidden. So, it's not so obvious that they're out partying or whatever while everybody's getting killed and not caring. But, and you even get that opening shot where someone's like dressed up as Dewey and Gale from like the original movie walking through. Like, little fun fact here, my senior year, I went to a Halloween party and me and my then girlfriend were Dewey and Gale dressed up just like that. So that hit me a little bit different. I thought it was pretty cool. And I love getting to see the opening to Stab 1 and Heather Graham again, in the background there too, by the way. It's just another great nostalgic ball kicker to me. I love this group of scenes. Gale wearing the Scream mask as a disguise, is a nice little meta, as just meta as fuck touch. And then you get that meta line about being meta, even, what more can you ask for there?
Right. I think the strength of this set of scenes is a lot of the dialogue that you mentioned. So I didn't take a ton of notes here because there's not like a bunch of big highs, but the dialogue is great, between Sydney and Jill. I think Gale, like you mentioned, is just A+. Like Courtney Cox, Gale Weathers in her fucking bag, like you said, where she's just, she's funny. Like it's very sarcastic. It plays so different than it did in the first one. And even the second one, where she kind of comes off as bitchy. In this one, she's great. I love how she calls it a circle jerk, and she kind of makes fun of the movie club or whatever they call it. And so a lot of the dialogue in this set of scenes is really, really good. I'm with you. The Rebecca kill is probably, man, it is probably my low point of the movie. I think it's very, very predictable. I agree with you about the dialogue from Ghostface, but the kill is so bleh. It's so, and they do a lot of decent suspense building, even though the jumping on the car is kind of over the top, just to have a stab to the gut. And I know that's a Ghostface thing, but man, it just, in this scene, it bugs me. It's just too plain. I do like the fact that she gets thrown off the parking garage into the press conference. I love that press conference, by the way. It's funny. The way that kind of Gale goes at Dewey is really, really good. And again, props to Courtney Cox for her role here. And the scene with Sydney and Jill, great dialogue, like you mentioned. But I'll say this, just not even in review of this film, but Stabathon is a great fucking party idea. Now, with a little bit of hindsight, hell yeah, man. If we threw on all the saws in a row and threw a fucking cool-ass party, I'm in on that. Let's do it. Get a keg. I know Dustin will foot the whole bill, so I don't have to worry about anything. And so,
I beg your pardon.
Listen to Money Mike over here.
I knew that was coming. But no, I do. There's so much little meta things in here, and I know that Nico's not a big fan, but some of they even talk about being meta, and that
Right.
is you can't get any more self-aware than that. And I think it plays really well in this movie. There's people dressed as the characters in the movie we're watching at this Stabathon. And, like you mentioned, you get the Heather Graham from Stab 1, which, again, is kind of meta in and of itself. Like, just so much going on here. And if it's not your cup of tea, I could totally see how it would be overload. But I love little things like that. Like, just noticing those little things is so good. And listen, Gail's idea to set up these cameras is actually dumb as fuck. Like, the idea to go disguised as Ghostface makes sense. But when Ghostface is there, it's kind of dumb. I don't know. There's a lot of with that. But I really like the idea of having the fake. So this is basically the fake final act. Like, I like that they didn't do it at a big party like they have in the first Scream. This is the quote unquote remake, reboot part of the franchise, and that kind of plays, with the actual meta of this movie. I like that they didn't do that. I think that the scenes we're about to get, I really, really like. But the strength of this set is a lot of the writing and the dialogue from Kevin Williamson.
Yeah, so I agree with what you guys said. I don't have a ton of notes either. Just you get a typical horror movie dummy with Rebecca in the garage, with her bumbling and fumbling and dropping her keys, and then not being able to run his ass over with the car. Like, that's very typical horror movie. And I actually, when I watched this last time, I was like, man, it seems like these in horror movies that make me appreciate Cabin in the Woods so much, because when someone fucks up to this magnitude and then ends up getting themselves killed, I'm like, there had to be someone controlling it and putting stupid juice in her air or something to make her be this fucking stupid. But anyway, I digress. And first of all, Nico, I want to say that had he not checked for a pulse, you people would have just been there claiming negligence. Like, oh, what if she survived? He should have checked her pulse. So my man Dewey's fucked if he does, fucked if he doesn't. So get off his back.
Negligence.
The scene where, we get the new rules and the movie club, to me, honestly, I didn't love. It felt too forced. It's like, okay, we get it. Like, you didn't have to tell us that this is the new Randy without making him the new Randy, right? Like, screaming the rules and all this, that, and the other. Like, we could see it. They're movie nerds. I don't know. I didn't hate it, I guess, but it didn't really resonate with me. Then we get, the party in the barn is very horror movie cliche. It honestly reminded me of the field party in Freddy versus Jason. How, hey, people are dying, but let's go get our fuck on. Let's go drink and be teenagers, damn it. And I agree with what you said, though, Mike. Like, I'd be the same way. Like, I'm living during the Jigsaw murders. You know what? Let's throw a Jigsaw themed party and just get crazy. I'm with it. Fuck it. And at this point in real life, it's 2020. Like, is that the worst thing that could happen? But anyway, yeah. So, and then the last thing I have on this is just I made a note. I wrote meta in all caps with 3 exclamation marks, because this set of scenes in particular oozes meta. It's almost like Exhibit produced this, and he was treating it like an episode of Pimp My Ride. He's like, yo, dog, I heard you like meta, so I put some meta on your meta. Yo, and
yes.
So, yeah, I don't hate that, but I can understand why Nico would.
Tired of being attacked.
It's not an attack. I'm saying I see your point of view, brother.
I'm just kidding.
Don't be afraid to live your truth.
All right, Kirby tells Charlie she's kind of impressed as the crowd cheers on the movie. Gail sneaks back inside and Dewey arrives and calls for Judy to show up. Gail fixes her camera upstairs, then walks towards another hidden camera, and Dewey, out by Gail's car, sees Ghostface running behind her. And I wrote Gail versus Ghostface in the hay barn. Dewey runs in and shoots at Ghostface, but Gail gets stabbed in the chest shoulder area and thrown off the roof. Ghostface sneaks out the roof and she tells Dewey that there's a webcam and that the killer is recording the kills and making the movie this time. Hoss tells Perkins he doesn't like the fact that they're guarding Sidney's house, and all cops die in horror movies unless you're Bruce Willis. Perkins says not all cops die. Perkins says he'll take the next perimeter, but regrets it. Hoss tells him new decade, new rules, and he'll take this one and leaves the car. Inside, Sidney looks outside and hears a wind chime. Hoss sees a window open and asks Perkins if he saw a window open last check, but he hears no answer. Hoss goes to the car and finds Perkins head down in the steering wheel, but he's just fall scared. Then Ghostface sneaks behind Hoss, killing him, stabbing him in the back, and then he stabs Perkins right in the forehead. He gets out of the car, walking away, swinging at him, and falls to his knees and says, "Fuck Bruce Willis," and dies. Sidney hears the wind chime again she just took down and grabs a knife. It's Kate. She's grocery shopping for some reason late at night, calling it her stress buster, which is not true. Grocery shopping is not a stress relief. The phone rings and Sidney answers after Jill not answering. It's Ghostface. He calls her Survivor. He tells her to turn on the TV to Channel 6. Gail is in the hospital. He asks if she's happy she came home. He tells her you can't save them, just watch. She runs to Jill's room and sees the message on her computer that she's left the house. Sidney calls for Kate and tells her to get her home. Kate says the cops aren't there. They see Ghostface in the wind chime and run to the front door. They shut the door after a struggle, but Kate is stabbed through the mail slot in the door. She dies in Sidney's arms, and she says to tell Jill that she's sorry. She takes Kate's keys, then sees Ghostface run by a window, and then Officer Judy shows up. She takes Judy to where Kate is, and she calls in about Kate's dead body and the two officers missing. At the hospital, Gail tells Dewey to catch that motherfucker. We're at Kirby's now, and Charlie tells Robbie, Jill, and Kirby that the party is the false ending and puts on Stab 7, and he says he's not having his party ruined. Charlie asks Kirby who was the first to play Leatherface, and he asks about the charge they just had between themselves. Robbie is scared his website will be shut down, and Trevor shows up, sneaking in through the front door. He says Jill texts her inviting him there, but she doesn't even have her phone, she says. He asks the two guys how they feel being accessories to a crime. He then asks who sent him a text from Jill's phone, and Kirby asks isn't his phone missing, but he conveniently got a new one. Judy calls Dewey and says Kate is dead, and Sidney fled the scene, and the two officers were found dead in their car. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I don't have a ton on this group of scenes here, but most of it isn't good. What is great is that, you feel like Gail is in some actual danger here, and we actually may get an original cast member bite it. And honestly could have had she stabbed her, not in the shoulder or whatever. But what I do not buy is that this is supposed to be Jill fighting with Gail here. Come on. Gail is whipping her ass. Again, sorry, but I totally buy Emma Roberts and her motivation, and I love her, but I do not buy her as Ghostface. Gail would have whooped her ass right there. Now, the cop scene. All right, let me get into this writing stuff a little bit. So Kruger was brought in, to do some rewrites with Williamson. Like we said, show running Vampire Diaries, and that led to Lauren Graham, from Gilmore Girls, dropping out of the role of Sidney's aunt because the role was reduced to almost nothing after the rewrites, and actually Hayden Panettiere was open in the press and public about being frustrated because her role was dumbed down a lot as well. Now, I'm not entirely 100% and can't find exactly which scenes were rewrites and which, weren't. And again, I love this movie. I've said nothing but good things just about it to this, but I know for a fact that this whole cop scene right here is a Kruger edition. And is it great? I mean, look, I'm not a fan. I've said earlier, I'm not a fan of the two cop characters being so fucking idiotic. I think there's too much of that in this whole movie with the Woodsboro Police Department, and it's too clownish, like I said to me, but holy fucking shit. I will say Perkins being stabbed in the fucking head, like, I thought about, what is that, Step Brothers, where he's like, in the face, like, that's what I kept saying, and it showed it. I mean, let's go. But then, Kruger, come the fuck on with that whole clown, fuck Bruce Willis line as he's fucking dying. Look, that's 100% Kruger's writing, and Scream 3 bullshit right there all over again. But I think that's unnecessary, misplaced jokes. But I did love the dude getting stabbed in the fucking head, in the face. Kate's death, terrible. Obvious holding the blood in her mouth there. I hate that's pet peeve of mine. dies way too quickly, I think. And it's through a mail slot. Yeah, whatever. Like, that's, to me, that's spoiler alert, that's my worst death in this movie to me. Lastly, again, I do like more of that. I disagree, with you guys. Like, I do like the red herring with Judy, actually, and especially here. I liked getting a little bit more of it. Her character here is starting to grow on me. Her delivery of dialogue with Dewey to me was a little flat. I would have liked to have seen a better performance there. But I do love the Gale and Dewey moment where she says, "Catch that motherfucker." I love that. Their real life chemistry continues. And we talked about that in Scream 2. Dustin brought that up. Like, their real life chemistry, like, it continues to show throughout this entire franchise.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what you said. I just want to say, you got into the Kruger, the scenes that he ended up writing, and, he kind of came in and took over a couple things, but I just think that Sydney's sister is irrelevant here. Like, I kind of forget that she's in this movie, and so her death is so not necessarily unnecessary, because I think she's clearly in this movie to die, like to have or try to have an impactful death. And I agree. I just don't think it works. It reminds me of the kill in Scream 2, stabbed through the fucking bathroom stall. That I didn't like that, and I don't like this. Neither one are very like believable. Just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm just not a fan of either of that. So, but again, the fight between Gale and Ghostface, I tend to agree with you, Brian. Where obviously I think Gale would kick her ass, or Ghostface's ass, but I like that we get really like. To me, this was the very first time I saw it. That was the first scene that even occurred to me that it could be Jill. Like, so up to this point, they had done a good job of kind of disguising it. But this was the first scene where I'm kind of like, that would be fucking nuts if it were Jill. And I kind of like throw it aside. Well, I think that's a really good job. And I like that we're not now. I have more on this later, but I like that we're not killing off Gale right here. I do like that. But I'll save my thoughts on all that for later. But I thought that scene is good. I like, Ghostface coming to cover up all the cameras. I think that's good. Like, just, there's some good stuff there. And as much as I'm not a fan of the red herring with Judy, there is some stuff, within here, you touched on it, Brian, that I do like. But these cops are, again, so irrelevant. And I've said this before, Anthony Anderson and I believe Tori Spelling are the only two Scream to Scary Movie tie-ins. I could be wrong on that. I could be way off on that. But Anthony Anderson was in Scary Movie 3 when he does to have to stop living up here, start living down here. But what about when we used to live over there? Like, that kind of stuff. So that's what I think of when I see him. So to see him as this cop in this movie, I know the Woodsboro Police Department is very clownish, but I think he's there for this reason. I love his kill, though. A fucking stab in the forehead. Illogical. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I think it looks fucking cool. Like, it is a really good kill to me. At least it's something that, like, again, stab to the ass, stab to the face, stab to the dick, whatever. Stab to the forehead is pretty fucking brutal. And so when we're in a franchise that doesn't have a lot of what I would call brutal kills, this movie has 2 now. And so I'll give them props on kind of upping the brutality there. But again, like a lot of this, but there clearly is some stuff here in this half of the movie that's not Kevin Williamson. And you can see it clear as day. I know, Brian mentioned not being able to point out which is which. And sometimes there is, they do a decent job of kind of balancing it. But I think there's some stuff later, especially the end, where I do think there might have been a little bit of a disagreement on how they should have ended this movie. But not a bad set of scenes, but definitely not my favorite.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to start by saying, as much as I love Sheriff Dewey, is he not the worst shot of all time? Jesus Christ. When his wife had just been stabbed and he shoots at him, he's got a wide open shot. I mean, you cannot get a more clear shot. And he misses by about 13 feet and he hits a light fixture. That shit makes me laugh every time I see it. And then Ghostface sneaks out the back door of the barn or the hayloft, and I'm like, God, but you know what? I'm gonna give him a pass here because his wife had just been stabbed. His wife is in danger. His emotions probably took the best of him. He probably had the adrenaline pumping. That caused that errant shot. There's no way he's that bad of a shot. Anyway, I digress again. The back and forth with the cops, I thought was a pretty good scene because I could see that being very realistic. Like it's a very intense situation. You're supposed to be watching this house where you know that there's probably going to be some action. There's a good chance the killer's going to try to kill the people that you're guarding here, but they're keeping it light. They're joking around with each other. Trying to make the best of the situation. I thought it was very believable dialogue. And I love the Bruce Willis references as well. Like that goes back, another real life reference. Bruce Willis in movies is he's the cop that always lives. Nothing bad can happen to him. And I think it's a nice nod there when Haas, or what was his name? Haas. Hang on.
The cop with Perkins?
Yes,
Haas.
Yeah, there it is. Deputy Haas. Adam Brody, he was actually in the movie Cop Out with Bruce Willis where he was a cop. So I thought that was a nice little touch there. I think Cop Out came out after this, but regardless. But I will say this set of scenes, though, I didn't gush over the forehead kill, stab to the forehead like you guys did. I actually didn't really like it. The knife slid into his forehead way too easily to me. He didn't really put much force behind it. He just touched the knife to his forehead and it was in there. I've never stabbed someone in the forehead, but I imagine it's a much harder thing to do than what Ghostface made it look like there. And then the over the top nature in which he got out of the car. He tried to tuck his brains back inside. He was holding on his forehead, trying to stop the bleeding with his fingers there. But then he gets out of the car and he starts swinging. It was a little over the top to me, so I didn't really love that kill the way you guys did. I can understand why you would, because it is a cool optic. It's a cool visual, much more blood and gore than we got in the first couple movies of the franchise.
I like the stab. I don't like the theatrics after it.
Yeah,
okay.
Right, that's fair.
Yeah, see that's fair.
Too. Right, that's fair.
That's fair. But regardless, the stab would have been cool if Ghostface looked like he or she put some effort behind the stab. It was way too pussy of a stabbing to be believable in my opinion. I disagree with you, Nico. Grocery shopping actually can be stress relief. However, I enjoy it. I love grocery shopping. I love just walking around the store and you're focused on the task, takes your mind off all the outside bullshit in the world. I think it's very effective stress relief. However, I would never do it this late at night when members of my family are trying to be killed. That seems like the wrong time to go. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And I actually thought that Kate's death was kind of well done. I kind of enjoyed it because put yourself in her and Sydney's situation. You're leaned up against the door. You're trying to keep the killer from getting in. You finally slam the door shut and you slide down and take a seat because you think, oh, we're safe. But then on the other side of the door, you're Ghostface. You're like, fuck, they locked me out. Ooh, there's a mail slot. I wonder. And so like, I thought that was very well. I enjoyed that death. It's not my favorite death, but I liked it. I'll be honest with you. I liked that death a lot. And then, the next few notes that I have here, my man Charlie finally getting some action. Shout out to Charlie because look like that, get a girl that looks like that. I don't think I'm as ugly as Charlie, but I can definitely respect and relate to a man out kicking his coverage. Shout out to that. But also, fuck you, Trevor, for being a world-class cockblock. So not a great stretch of scenes by any stretch of imagination, really. But they were effective because these set of scenes, they're throwing a lot at you. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving and shaking parts here. And so they're doing a great job, in my opinion, of throwing you off their tracks and getting you off the scent of who the killer really is. Like at this point, the wheels are spinning. You're like, okay, maybe it's them. Maybe it's them. Maybe. And so this is an effective set of scenes, just not my favorite.
Are Charlie and Kirby are watching Stab while Robbie is getting his drink on. He talks into his little camera saying Charlie may get lucky with a girl after Kirby invites him to come sit with her. Robbie hears a noise and asks who's there and turns around and gets hit in the head by a hanging potted plant. Kirby tells Charlie now would be a good time to make a move and says he's cute, and they go to kiss. But like Dustin says, Trevor barges in on them, cock blocking him.
I was early, my bad.
No, you're good. But he couldn't find Jill. Charlie leaves, and Kirby stares him down with pure anger. Robbie tosses the bottle in Kirby's yard disrespectfully and walks up the stairs, and the door opens, and it's Ghostface, who stabs him in the gut and then stabs him in the back. Robbie's on the ground, and he says that he's gay, and that's the rules to not kill the gay character. Kirby turns off the TV and goes to look out the front door, and Jill stops her, saying she never got the text. She opens the door, and Sydney is there. Robbie appears behind them, then he collapses dead, and Ghostface chases them all upstairs. Sydney takes Jill's phone and has her get under the bed. Sydney is on the roof, and Ghostface doesn't chase after her. Sydney gets a hold of Dewey, and then Ghostface knocks her off the roof. Sydney runs back in, and Kirby says the landline and router are out. Kirby says there's a room down in the basement where they can lock themselves in. But Charlie is outside knocking on the door and says the blood is Robbie's and someone's after him, but she doesn't trust him. Ghostface slams his head into the door. And this is kind of a weird thing right here. Then it cuts to the screen cuts black, and then Dewey is full speed heading there. And now after the screen is not black anymore, Charlie is bound to the chair like Casey's boyfriend in the first screen, and Ghostface calls and tells them heads are going to roll tonight, and it's her fault. Sydney says she's going to go get Jill. Ghostface now asks Kirby if she likes horror movies and asks her horror questions. She gets a question wrong and asks for one more chance. She then names off horror remakes before he finishes the question and says she has to be right. Sydney doesn't find Jill under the bed, and Kirby frees Charlie from the chair, but Charlie stabs her in the stomach and says it's been 4 years and you finally notice me now? He walks off from killing her, and Sydney is walking through the house looking for Jill. Charlie grabs her from behind with the knife to her throat. She runs off and is stabbed in the stomach by Jill, the other Ghostface. Jill shows her the camera, and Charlie grabs her and says she got great video. They plan on tracing it all back to Trevor. She says, "You think you had a shitty boyfriend, Sydney?" Trevor said he loved her, but they kick him and then shoots him in the dick and then in the head. And the next two scenes are the ending. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I really like that we get this scene with the whole new crew here. Hayden and Culkin are just so good, especially at the beginning. Again, I love Hayden's character, so, I really do hate that it got dumbed down in rewrites. She's great here. I really hate also that she died, but I don't know, did she? I mean, because in the DVD commentary, Craven actually revealed a scene from the shooting script that showed that she actually survived, but was, that was cut during production. But Craven said, as you can see, Hayden was still moving.
Come on, Scream
will she make
Come
an appearance?
on.
Hey, that's what I wrote down. Will she make an appearance in 5? I don't know, but I think carrying her on to the next one was, I think, Craven's original plan / hope. So I hope that they honor that, to be honest, if that's the case, and they do get her back. The back and forth here is really good, I think, with Ghostface, which is, Charlie at this point. I like how, again, Sydney isn't really running scared. She's fighting back and pretty calm this whole time. She's pretty peak badass here. Also, I think they do a really good job with the reveal. And I think the motivation, I'm glad that, we don't have something traced back to Sydney's mother again, or some reason why someone's mad at Sydney because of something her mother did. We have real motivation for a new decade that's honestly still relevant today, in 2020, almost 10 years removed from this movie. Social media clout chasing. I mean, shit, we see this all the time. We see it every day. It's probably worse now than it even was back then. And she said herself, you don't have to achieve anything. You just have to have fucked up shit happen to you. That's what I was talking about earlier. Like, it would have been easier, I think, cleaner for me to accept, if Robbie and Charlie had just been the killers. But, having Jill be revealed, that was a kick to the dick because, you really grow. I really grew to love her, during this and accept her as the new Sydney. It's great and it sucks at the same time, but it's not in a bad way. Look, I mean, I'm not saying I wanted those as two killers. I loved Jill. So, lastly, Trevor's death. Holy shit. No knife. Just bam. Bullet to the dick. Bullet to the head. Shows it all. Like, there's not even much to say after that. By the way, bullet to the dick and bullet to the head shirts to be available on the store shortly
to the ass.
Don't go out there,
So here we are. Okay.
That's all I
Yeah,
have.
so I love this scene with the younger cast because it really does do a good job of kind of fleshing them out a little bit. We're getting to know them a little more, how they interact with each other. It, again, reminds me of a very toned down version of the house party from the first one, a very, almost like a fun get together, which again, I know they just had this like big brouhaha at the Stabathon, but this group wants to quote unquote keep partying. And again, I love the interaction with all of them. God bless, I wish Kirby and Charlie would have, but I'm just saying, I was pulling from a man, I was pulling from a guy. Okay. But then turns out he's a ghost face. So kind of glad it didn't work out that way. I like how they kind of, tie him up. Like, it's very reminiscent of that first Scream with the boyfriend. So there's a lot that I really like there. By the way, Jill's motivation to be a ghost face, like Brian said, that's very topical, very on the nose for today. So even in 2011, her motive holds up very, very strong to me as just wanting to be famous off of it. And the lengths that we're going to get into, the lengths that she's about to go to kind of pull it off, it's fucking batshit crazy, for lack of a better term. And so I love the turn that the character of Jill makes. I think we end up liking her and then they kind of slap us in the face. Really, really fun. Love that reveal. The way she treats Trevor just for cheating on her in high school and kind of dumping her, shoots him in the dick. My God, man. I mean, I'm just going to have a little reveal here. High school Mikey would have had no dick. That's all I got to say. But listen. Oh, sorry. What did I say? But, hey, dick was whacked, pal. But anyway. No, so again, I'm a fan of this set of scenes because it really, we're getting a little bit away from the older cast and getting more of the newer generation, and I love it. Like Brian mentioned, you kind of hope Kirby is still alive. Like, that is something that even before I saw the DVD or listened to the DVD commentary that I have on Blu-ray here, even before that, you do see Kirby moving, and you're kind of hoping, okay, Dewey made it through worse, just saying. Courtney Cox made it through worse multiple times. Like, all these original cast members have lived, so I'm kind of hoping that's what they do with Kirby. I hope Hayden Panettiere makes an appearance because I love her character. And, I like the set of scenes a lot. Probably my favorite set of scenes in the whole movie because what we're about to get, I have a love-hate relationship with. But really strong Ghostface reveals. And I know some people have complained about Charlie, not so much about Jill. To me, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a really fun twist. But I think those two working together is a lot of fun.
All right, yeah. So I'm like I mentioned before, I kind of jumped the gun on the whole Charlie and Kirby getting cock blocked situation there. I just want to say one more time, fuck you, Trevor, man. Don't be hating on my boy. But regardless, there, I thought that Robbie's death was a great optic. See the theatrics from Perkins when he gets stabbed in the head and he gets out and he starts swinging. That was too much. But this one is actually perfectly done because he'd been stabbed and he's able to muster up the strength to walk around to the front and then just collapses. Like, that wasn't too over the top. I like the way that was done because that was another one of those classic Scream franchise shocking deaths that you're like, it's tense. He's collapsing. Still at this point, is Ghostface going to jump out from behind his body and get someone else? Like, that was a tense moment. I appreciated the way that was shot. When Charlie walks up to the door and he's asking, please let me in, let me in. This is not, I know what this blood looks like, but you got to trust me. Please let me in. I thought Hayden Panettiere really acted her ass off there. Like you could tell the confliction in her face, in her tone of voice, but also you had those conflicting feelings as well, because you're like, okay, typical horror movie trope for a girl would be, yeah, I'm gonna let him in, trust him, when it could probably lead to her demise. But at the same time, you're like, no, I want to trust Charlie. He seems like a good guy in this movie. But then at the same time, that's what Scream does. It's always the person you least expect. And so I like the confliction that they really sold in that scene there. And then when he's tied to the chair, I appreciate the way Ghostface was throwing these questions about classic horror movies at her, especially the question about, what was this killer's signature weapon? And I've been waiting on it up until now to bring it up, how, Mike has said it's, the typical Scream thing, stab to the ass, stab to the gut, stab to the titty, whatever. The thing about it is Ghostface's signature weapon. And so I like that they threw that in there. What's Leatherface's signature weapon? Chainsaw. Every horror movie villain, every great slasher has that signature. So I like the fact that they brought that up there. There's a little self-awareness there thrown at us again. And then the scene where Kirby's like, to hell with this. She goes out and she's going to free Charlie and save his life. Holy shit. You want to talk about a shocking twist when he stabs her in the gut there. It's like, oh, so she was right all along. She shouldn't have let him in. And that's one death. That's one twist that I can honestly say never would have saw coming. I probably should have, but it just didn't seem likely enough to me. And I thought that they pulled it off masterfully. And then another great revelation is the revelation of Jill. Like you guys said, the motivation behind it's perfect. And so the revelation of her being the killer is, or one of the Ghostface is, I thought that it was really well done. The motivation behind her wanting to get this clout, the motivation to torture Trevor and, fuck you, buddy. You want to cheat on me? Well, you did. Put his dick in the dirt, literally. I thought this was a great set of scenes, and it sets up for a fantastic finish that I enjoy thoroughly.
All right, ready for Act 3? Charlie says Trevor is this generation's Billy Loomis, and he and Jill are the innocent victims, a.k.a. Randy and Sydney. Jill says with us they're going to see what happened. We're going to know fame like you've never dreamed of. Charlie kisses Jill, and Sydney asks, how could you do this? Jill was jealous of the attention she got. Jill stabs Charlie right in the chest, killing him. No feeling woozy here when you're dead, fam. She tells Charlie she's going to blame him and Trevor for it all. Jill says she needs fans, not friends. She wants to become Sydney. Sick is the new sane. Jill says you don't have to achieve anything to be famous. Just have fucked up shit happen to you. She stabs Sydney again, and she falls to the ground. Jill now cuts the tape off Trevor and scratches her face with his hand and rips her hair out with his hand. She stabs herself with a knife against the wall in the shoulder. She runs into a picture on the wall and then backdrops onto a glass table and falls right beside Sydney as the cops arrive. Dewey leads the cops in and they find the bodies. The media is asking Jill questions on the stretcher as she's loaded into the ambulance. They ask how it felt to be a hero. She cries to Dewey about the victims, and Dewey says Gail will be fine, and then tells her Sydney might make it to her surprise, saying Trevor killed her. She wants to go see her, but she's asleep and may not remember. She gets out the bed and heads towards ICU. Gail asks Dewey if she's going to be okay, and he tells her they should write a book. Then Gail asks how she knew she was stabbed in the shoulder as well, and Dewey runs out of the room once he realizes what happened. Jill asks Sydney if she's Michael Myers since she won't die. She chokes Sydney and they roll off the bed. She puts her knee in her stomach wound, then punches her in the gut and throws her into the wall. Dewey runs into the room and is hit from behind with a bedpan repeatedly. Jill takes his gun and says the ending was supposed to be at the house, and this is an alternate ending and silly. Gail enters the room and asks about the book, and Judy runs in saving Gail from being shot. Judy gives up her gun so Jill won't shoot Dewey. Then Jill shoots Judy right in the chest and she falls out, and she tells Gail to stand up. Sydney sneaks behind Jill and puts defibrillators against her head and shocks her. And Sydney says, "Don't fuck with the original." Sydney grabs the gun and shoots Jill as she approaches with a piece of glass. Judy stands up, showing her bulletproof vest. Gail runs out and says, "We need a doctor," because no one can hear the commotion and gunshots, I guess. Outside, the news is calling Jill a hero and giving her the fame she won't get to embrace. And the film ends with a close-up of a dead Jill. All right, Brian, what do you think of that ending, brother?
Yeah, Emma Roberts, she's so good here. The killers, once they're unmasked, especially her, just unhinged, like falling into that, and how they show the madness. Like Billy and Stu were so good at that in that first one, and we got honestly kind of shitty reveals in 2 and 3 to me, like especially 3. Like Roman we talked about that. Come on, but this was so good, and it added to it, watching Jill beat herself up, throw herself into tables, and everything else, then just curl up right next to Sydney and pose the same way. Shit was great to me. Now, obviously, we get this fake ending. Well, not really fake, but like false ending here, and at first you really think, wow, is this it? Like when the media is all in her face, but it sets up the real ending at the hospital. And this was what I was talking about. Like, I mean, breaking down Sydney, like, and even at the end, still knowing your family has even tried to kill you. Like that's some deep trauma, like trauma that could, dare I say, drive you into madness as a killer. But now you can really tell that Krueger kind of had his hand in some of this because, I mean, first of all, you got to definitely suspend some belief here. I mean, Sydney having zero security, no nurses, shit, like, trust me, I've been in the hospital at night. There are nurses everywhere, especially in the ICU. But, plus, like, her beating Dewey with a dead bedpan, like, come on. Like, I'm not even a fan, honestly, of the defibrillator. Like, it's just too much for me. Like, now, you forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill, don't fuck with the original line. Like, I love that line. But the clownish, wear the vest, save your chest, and then passing out again, like, come the fuck on. Like, and also I'm going to bitch about the credits song. You got to have Red Right Hand there. Come on. You got to have Red Right Hand. But, so for as much as I love this movie, the second ending here is a weak spot for me. Like, and we'll probably knock it down at least 0.00001 points in my rating or something like that. So that's all I had.
Yeah. So I mentioned that I have a love-hate here, and I do, because I love how they delve into Jill's madness, where she's throwing herself through a glass table. She's, taking Trevor's hand and scratching her face. She, all the stuff she puts herself through to make it look like she's a victim is just insane. I think that Emma Roberts does a great job. The way the news kind of portrays her as a hero, she gets exactly what she wants out of that. And so to me, as disappointing as it would have been to maybe end that there, I would have liked that better than what we ended up with for a couple of reasons. One, because as much as I love this original 3, I really do. I love Sidney Prescott, Gail, and Dewey. I think it's would have been a little impactful to maybe take one of them out here. I don't know who, not Sidney, but maybe one of the other two could have just.
Well, definitely not Dewey.
Okay, sure, but probably Dewey. Anyway, but even if you don't go that direction, I just feel like our little double ending that we get here goes a little too long for me. I like the reveal that Dewey and Gail have with each other that, oh shit, one of the killers is obviously Jill. I like that little moment, but outside of that, the stuff with the defibrillator and the clear, that, like, all of that is just it goes a little long in the tooth. Emma Roberts even kind of says it in the dialogue that this is, this is kind of taking a little too long here. And you get Officer Judy. It's just kind of a mess at the end. So I do think you're probably right, Brian, where there's some Krueger influence here. The end is not my favorite, but it doesn't ruin my enjoyability for this movie overall. I do like it. I just think that it went a little long, and I wish we could have maybe tightened it up, shaved a couple minutes off here and there, and just got to the point where Jill is still the hero to her, but we know that she's actually the killer. So I feel like it went a little long there. And I agree. The ending song, we all know what the fucking real ending song should have been. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have a ton of notes on this scene on the finale other than what you guys mentioned. Just I too want to commend Emma Roberts, her acting in that scene where she's trying to fully commit to selling the fact that she's the victim here. That shit's batshit crazy, and it was fascinating to watch her just go through the lengths that she went through to sell it and to make people believe that she didn't do any of this. She's innocent. She got shit kicked out of her worse than probably anyone. So that was great acting there. And I also thought it was a great bit of acting when you see the panic in Jill's face when she finds out that Sydney survived. You see that oh shit moment take place. And so I thought that was just a great bit of nonverbal acting skills there. But the finale does go a bit long. They could have wrapped it up a lot smoother, neater, and quicker than what they did. But I agree with what you said, though, Mike. It doesn't really take away from it doesn't take away from anything necessarily. It's just it's not concise, and it's just one of the things they could have shaved off of the minute 51 runtime right here. Didn't really need to anywhere else, but it's just the way that they tied the bow on it. This hospital is very poorly lit, very poorly staffed, and it can go to hell. But overall,
Right.
come on, man. Like,
Ridiculous.
Not to mention, like you said, Brian, you've been to hospitals at night. Like, there's nurses everywhere, there's staff everywhere, but I have to believe that there's especially going to be staff everywhere, maybe guarding the people that they just had attempts on their life. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm crazy.
Plus the ICU, they don't leave you just laying there alone.
Yeah, exactly. So, but overall, it was a fulfilling ending to the what we thought at the time to be the conclusion of the Scream saga. I've got thoughts, I've got feelings on the fact we're getting another chapter, which we'll get into in a little bit. But overall, not a bad ending. Just could have been wrapped up a little bit quicker.
All right, guys. So, got any more final thoughts before we jump into a couple of fan questions?
Nope.
All right, friend of the show, Michelle Mirza. She asked us, "Where does this franchise rank for each of you on your list of favorite horror franchise, or does it even make your list of favorites?" And I already know how brother Brian feels, so go ahead and tell me, brother.
Oh, I mean, it's shit. And that's a really hard question. Like, I love it, and I already said it's one of my favorite ones. But shit, I don't know if I could rank them, to be honest with you. Some have 13 entries, some have 2. Like Conjuring series, some have like, it's just this has 4. I don't know. I think, shit, it's definitely up there. Let's just say. I don't really know how to rank that question. That's a really hard one for me to answer.
I'll go real.
Dustin,
okay.
Mike.
I'll
Mike.
go real quick because I think mine's pretty simple. When 3 out of your 4 movies are movies that I really enjoy, you got to rank pretty high for me. I love the first one and this one. Scream 2 is really good as well. It's my favorite horror franchise. Now, Michael Myers is my favorite horror character, but there's some bad movies in that franchise. There is one below average movie in this whole franchise, and the other 3 I just really enjoy. So just as far as quality of film, Scream is probably my favorite horror franchise.
Dustin?
I'll take you a step further there, Mike. You said one below average film in the franchise. To me, it's only below average when held in comparison to the other 3 films in the franchise.
I'll throw on 3 before I throw on half of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Yeah. So, I appreciate the fact that I've kind of flown under the radar with you guys as far as my love for this franchise. But, let's just get the cat out of the bag here. I fucking love Scream, the whole franchise. I will say that it's right there. Okay, so Jason Voorhees is my favorite killer. He's my favorite slasher, just like Michael Myers is your favorite, Mike. But in the grand scheme of things, now that when I really sit and think about this question, I don't think that I enjoy the entirety of the Friday the 13th franchise nearly as much as I do the entirety of this one. And that goes to what you said, Brian. There's 12 Friday the 13th movies. So, yeah, some of those are just complete dog turds. So when you compare them to 4 in this franchise, maybe that plays into it. But this one, to me, as far as franchises go and how the quality of the franchises and how much I love the franchises, this one's right there with Saw for me as far as it's top 3, and it ain't 3.
All right, I'll be the negative guy. I like Scream, but I don't love it. I would put quite a few franchises above it, honestly, but no disrespect. It's just this hell no. This is just a preference. It's all just preference. It's just personally not one of my favorites. All right, now we got 2.
Well, hey, I will say, like, after this, we're gonna have to update the about section on don'tgoouthere.com because Nico's got favorite horror franchise Saw, which is right. My favorite horror franchise, I've got Scream. Mike's favorite horror franchise, Halloween,
Scream, doesn't it?
And Dustin. Nope, it says favorite horror movies, Halloween and Scream, but favorite horror franchise, you've got Halloween, and Dustin's got Friday the 13th, which he said that, but
yeah,
fair enough.
All right,
it's a liquid situation.
Fair enough. Depends on the day.
Exactly.
And big time fan of the show, Shan. She asked us 2 quick questions. First one, we've already kind of answered this one. Do you think Kirby survived and will be in the next movie? And I read the exact same thing y'all did and watched. I didn't watch the commentary, but I did read where that Wes Craven had a scene that they ended up deleting where she survived. So I think she died in this movie personally, but it's definitely open. I counted her death personally, but it's open ended. What do y'all got any more to comment?
I hope she lives. I hope she survives.
Yeah, I agree. I hope she did. And it's not just because, Hayden Panettiere is very nice to look at. It's just I like the callbacks. I like part of what I enjoy the most about the first 3 Scream movies is that revelation. Oh, Dewey lived, or at the end of each movie, oh, Dewey lived. So I think it'd be a cool oh, she lived, Kirby lived. So I enjoy that from this franchise. So continue with her.
She ups the cast. Her acting at the end with Charlie is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
So good. So she would up the acting in this, in the 5th movie as well. Just her being in the movie, makes it a better movie from an acting standpoint. And I just hope they don't make her a ghost face because that's kind of
yeah.
It's gonna be Billy
Brian,
and Stu, man.
I wouldn't mind her being Ghostface, whatever. But I said it already. I hope that she's in it, and
I agree. I hope she's in it.
I think that she will be, as long as Hayden wants to return to the franchise.
I mean, she's a big name.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she would definitely bring.
Absolutely.
She's got a lot of followers. I mean, it wouldn't hurt having her in it.
And that's Coach Jones' little dollar, man. Come on.
And the second question Shan asks is, do you think that disconnecting the motivation for the killings from Sydney's mom, as in the first 3 movies, worked, or they should have kept things connected to that part of the original story, even though in 3 it was a little too far-fetched? Brian, do you want to answer that first, since I needed you to clarify that question for me?
Yeah, and I already honestly answered that. I think that I enjoy the fact that it's not connected to her mother finally, and I think it gives it a whole new, like I said, new franchise, new rules, and I
like it because it goes away from being connected to Sydney's mom, because the 3rd one fucked that whole thing up big time. And so because 3 did it so bad as far as who the killer was, I think it was definitely time to go in a new direction. I'm very, very glad they did it. Worked really well for this movie, and that's why I'm interested to see the motivation behind the ghost face in Scream 5. Hope it's Sydney.
Yeah, so I just like that it's a fresh take. We took 11 years off from the franchise, and you don't want to come back and play the hits. I like that they gave us a fresh take and a fresh spin on the storyline. So I'm glad they went this direction.
Yeah, I like the direction too for this one because, I mean, you're just going to shoehorn in something else with it. I mean, all right, y'all want to jump? Let's jump into fun facts real quick. I just got a few of them I'll read off, then whoever wants to go next can. I got all mine from IMDb. Despite being the most recognizable face of the Scream franchise, this is the only installment where Ghostface has appeared on any of the North American posters or home media release covers. The character has previously appeared on international posters for the franchise. The roles of Chloe and Rachel were written with Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan in mind. That might have been pretty interesting. For the first time in the franchise, a CGI-added knife was used because director Wes Craven wanted to avoid using prop knives that are rubber, cardboard, and collapsible. With 4 installments, this landmarks the Scream franchise being one of the only horror franchises to have both its main characters as well as director Wes Craven return for all of the sequels. And the last one I have is Wes Craven said he was not going to return as director unless the script was as good as Scream 1996. And that's all I have. Who wants to go next?
I'll go real fast. I only have a couple. I got mine from HorrorGeekLife.com. Sydney's father was actually killed off in a deleted scene. If you consider, cut material to be canon, there was a deleted scene from the film, that reveals Neil has actually died prior to the events of Scream 4. This one I thought was really cool and I missed. But Henry Winkler actually has a cameo appearance, sort of. If you're paying attention, you may be able to notice there was a Principal Hembry memorial bust in the Woodsboro High School bearing Winkler's likeness. The Easter egg serves as a tribute to the character who died back in 1996. I thought that was awesome. And lastly, let me see. Sorry. Yeah, Dewey and Gale actually almost had a little baby written in the script here. They had a kid in the first couple of drafts apparently, but it just seemed odd that Courtney was always showing up at crime scenes with a baby, and so they decided that wasn't going to work. That's all I had.
I said all mine throughout, so go ahead.
Yeah, so Scream was made for $40 million. It grossed $97 million worldwide, so not the biggest box office success as far as this franchise go. I feel like it being 11 years later has something to do with that, but I do think that since its release, it's probably gathered not a cult following, but I feel like it's very appreciated. If you're a fan of the franchise, you most people rank this movie pretty damn high in this franchise, and I think it's for good reason.
Wow, $40 million. That's a lot of money. All right, tonight we're going to be doing a little extra something in our favorite kill, least favorite kill in the rating, brought to you by Manscaped. Use code DON'TGO on manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping. Tonight we're also going to be ranking all 4 of the movies in the franchise as well, real quick. Favorite kill, I picked Olivia. Stabbed through the hand, thrown into the mirror and dresser. Stabbed, thrown out the window, and gutted. It was brutal. I love seeing it. You saw all of her intestines hanging out when Sydney goes in the room. I like the upped gore in this movie. The least favorite, I might get shamed for this one, but I picked Kirby. There's a possibility she survives this film, according to Wes Craven. But honestly, just like in Halloween 18 with the Vicky kill, I hated it. The black screen cut I didn't like, and the homage to the first kill, I just wasn't a fan of it. And I'll go ahead and rank the screams. I'll go from worst to best. It's 3, 2, 4, and 1 for me. I don't know if we're going in depth, but that's my order. And we've already reviewed part 2. And I've already told Brian and Mike and Dustin in our group chat that if I could go back in time, I would change my rating because I did a Scream marathon on Sunday. And that singing scene just, oh God, I just wanted to, it was horrible. I wish Derek would have got killed a little more brutal for doing that, honestly. So I would change that rating from a 6.5 to like a 5.75 probably, just because it was that bad to me. And I'm giving Scream 4. I think this is a decent rating considering I'm not the biggest Scream guy. I gave it a 6.5. Y'all don't hate me, right?
It's your opinion, man.
I know. I know y'all are going to rate it really high, so, but I wrote down my pros. I love the 2 lead ladies, Sydney and Gale. And hot take, I actually like Gale more in this one. And I feel if her character arc went a different way, this movie would be elite. Also, a big fan of the supporting cast, especially Hayden Kirby. Jill was great as well in her character. Another positive was the kills. Were there a lot of stab kills? Yes, but we got, added stuff like throws out of the window on the vans, gutted and beaten, dick shots. That was cool. Like the house, I like the house settings as well. It's not great to me, but it's a good, fun watch that I'm sure most diehard Scream franchise fans love. All right. My cons. I didn't like the opening scene, honestly. I agree with you, Dustin. The cinema club scene in the school and all the rules, I wasn't a fan of that. I wondered, how did Olivia not hear Ghostface in that small-ass closet on the phone? Robbie's "but I'm gay" line before being killed, I wasn't a fan of. Dewey, Deputy Dewey, he kind of bothered me a little bit.
Sheriff
Dewey. I wrote Dewey annoys me. No offense, brother Dustin. Not a big fan of the ending. The reveal was a little underwhelming to me, and the ending was too long, like y'all said. Self-admitted not a meta horror fan. All the reboot, remake, rules, dialogue wasn't for me. I felt like after an 11-year hiatus, a much better film could have been made. And here's what I was talking about, a different character arc. I feel like you have the foundation of a Gail hating Sydney's success, her success, and unhappy in her marriage to where she'd have been an incredible Ghostface. Overall, and I may pitch that whenever we do that, pitch a sequel, pitch a new movie. I'm going to think on that one. But I wrote, overall, a fun watch, but nothing too special from a self-proclaimed not super huge fan of the Scream franchise. But I did like it. I really would have liked to see Gail be the Ghostface and one of the main characters. I would love to see that. That would have been awesome to me personally.
So I wrote down great dialogue for the most part. The cast was, again, amazing. I already said that, but it's funny that Mike brought this up earlier because I'll read you exactly what I wrote. I said, for as much trauma as Sid went through, I think you need to break her down just even a little bit more. Have Dewey go down too. And I wrote, I don't mean die, but make you think that he's dead again, like in the first one, maybe till the credits. So it's kind of funny that you said that. My favorite kill, Lucy Hale's throat slash is my favorite kill. Either that or Perkins stab in the face. I just didn't like the ending of that, so that's why I picked Lucy Hale's. My least favorite, I already said, Jill's mom. As far as ranking the Scream franchise goes, I'll read you what I have written down. It's actually from best to worst, so it's the opposite of what Nico just did. But I got Scream, Scream 4, Scream 2, a Scream fan film, Scream Season 3 of the TV show, anyone that wears a Scream mask at all and then films themselves, and then Scream 3 that I have down there at the bottom. But this is, I gave Scream 1 9.5. I actually went back and looked at that, and I don't remember what I gave Scream 2. I just know it was an 8 point something, I believe. I really like this franchise for sure. Being that this is my second favorite, I'm going to rank this one a 9.
Okay. So for me, like I said, I thought this was a good, fresh installment to a franchise that I enjoy thoroughly. It's tough. Like I said, it's tough when you take so much time off from a franchise and you want to come back and not completely ruin 3 beloved films, regardless of how we all think of 3. It does still have its merit to it. So I thought they did a good job. Fresh storyline, introduction of fresh characters. The smoke show factor is through the roof. I really enjoy this movie. As far as my favorite kill goes, I actually went with Kirby's just because it was so shocking to me that Charlie, who had been in love with her this film, who she was kind of flirting with the idea of, yeah, you know what, maybe I should give this nerd a chance. And you think these two are going to be the ones that in the end, they're going to be survivors. And this trauma is going to bring them together, is at least the way I was thinking it was going to go. And then gotcha, bitch, stabbed you in the stomach. So that one was shocking to me. Least favorite kill for me was Officer Perkins, just because I like I said, I get what you guys are saying, but the theatrics are included in that death to me because he wasn't dead yet.
I get that.
and the ease in which that knife went through the forehead, it was like, you know, you're taking a butter knife and stabbing a piece of cake. It's just like, it was way too easy. So it's the only knock I had on it. If Ghostface would have really sold, I'm jamming this knife into your forehead, I would have liked it. And then if he just like maybe even opens the door, takes a step and falls, maybe that would have been believable, but there's just way too much. As far as my rankings of the franchise, I don't think there's going to be much variation in any of us. I'll go worst to best, I guess, like Nico did. I go 3-2, man, and 4 and 1 are. I didn't finalize this until mid-show tonight. 4 and 1 to me, I think 1 was such a classic, but damn it, I really enjoy 4. So I go 4 then 1, but it's close. It's closer than a lot of people would probably expect, but 1's just such a classic to me. So that's the deciding factor there. Rating on this one, I went with 7.25. Which is slightly lower than what I ranked the first Scream, which I wasn't part of that episode, but I did it retroactively. I gave it a 7.5. I give this one a 7.25.
Okay, so again, I've already kind of gone over why I love this movie. I love meta, and I think this movie kind of cranks the volume up on that. So I'm a really big fan of that whole concept, that idea, and I think this movie, for the most part, is written really well. It's directed really well. The lighting is the only technical issue I have with it, but other than that, I think it's a really well-made movie. The cast is great, from old to new. I think it all just works so well, and so I really, really like this movie. My favorite kill is Olivia. The brutality of it, I think, is top notch. I've already kind of gone over that. My least favorite kill is Rebecca in the garage. While her being thrown off, I really thought was something different and kind of cool. But the kill itself is just not for me. Too bland, too predictable, not my cup of tea. But my franchise rankings, I'll go from worst to best. This is, again, probably my favorite horror franchise. So, you know, I like all of these movies, but I don't. Way down here at the bottom is Scream 3 for all the reasons that we're going to get into someday. My number 3 is Scream 2, which is so weird because for a very long time, Scream 2 is probably my favorite Scream. And just over the years, I don't think it's aged as well as the 2 in front of us. So Scream 2 is number 3. My number 2 is 1996's Scream, the original. My number 1 is actually this one right here, the one we'll review tonight, Scream 4. Takes the top spot. I love everything about it. The way the old and new mixes, I just really, really enjoy it. All that being said, my rating, can't believe I'm doing this, 9.5 for Scream 4. I love it that much. I can crank it on any time and have no issue watching it. And the only thing that takes it down from 0.5 is the end. That's pretty much it.
Wow, so that gives Scream 4 a composite rating from us of an 8.0625. High mark.
That's good.
Anybody got any final thoughts? We're way above the IMDb rating.
Well, what the hell do they know?
IMDb, with 127,509 reviews, it got a 6.1.
That's fair. But they're fucking wrong. So
they don't know shit, Jack.
Speaking of not knowing shit, Jack, and being fucking wrong, look, I just want to rant for 2 seconds. Whoever fucking named Scream 5 Scream, you are absolutely goddamn ridiculous. That's crazy. That's crazy. Why? Oh, this is Halloween all over again. And I ranted about 5 movies being Halloween, and now we're getting Scream 5 being
just
Scream.
call it Scream.
Thank you.
5.
Thank you.
Jesus.
Fucking. It's crazy. Exactly. Or 5 Cream or something like that.
5 Cream. Yeah. Let's talk. Geez, it's already 2 hours 20 minutes. Fuck it. What do y'all think's happening in Scream 5? Because I have no godly idea. Honestly.
I don't know, but I hope that makes it.
I don't know. I don't know. I said that in one of our Scream reviews that I really want to see Sidney B. Ghostface, but I don't know, man. I just want to see a good movie that's fucking written well. And like at this point, 5 movies in, and with any horror movies coming out, just do it right. Shit, like just do it like this was done. Just good, and don't interfere with Kevin Williamson's fucking script if he's writing it. So
how would y'all feel at the end of the movie? All 3 of them are still alive.
I probably.
I don't know. I mean, did they end it well? Is this Lethal Weapon 4? Shit. I mean, if they ended it well,
Yeah,
I'll be fine with it.
I mean, this one ended with all of them alive, and I gave it a 9.5, so I can't hate on it too much.
Here's what I'd like to happen in Scream 5. A very attractive cast, some quirky humor. Dewey saves the day.
This
There's
is
your movie.
literally Scream 4. Oh, okay.
There you go.
Dewey
That's fine. Scream 4 got a
Gail
9.5.
saved the day.
Yeah, I mean, Gail kind of always saves the day, and then Dewey comes in.
Dewey got
and-
beat with a bedpan. Jesus Christ. Beat with a bedpan. You hate to see it.
Well,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
know.
hate to
Dewey
see
got
it.
beat.
You do.
Hey, he got beat with a bedpan like Vince McMahon in 1999 by Steve Austin. Anyways, that's all I got.
I mean, it's all that scar tissue. It's just, my man's carrying around some baggage with all that scar tissue.
Yeah, okay. I'll just say, like, I have enough respect for Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox and Arquette, and I think they have enough respect for this franchise that I really don't think they would
I agree
sign
with
on
that.
to a movie that wasn't good. I really hope that they wouldn't do that. I don't think they would.
Yeah, I don't think they'd do a cash grabber either. Before we got there, I just want to ask y'all, what do y'all think about my Gail character arc for this movie?
I don't know, man. A little predictable for me. Not that I hate it, but it's just a little too normal slasher for me. Not quite Scream enough, if that makes sense.
I mean, I don't
hate
know.
it,
I mean, it would have been
Right.
It would have been interesting. I mean, shit. I don't know. I mean, you could have gone. It's Scream. You can go anyway with it, which is great.
To me personally, I just feel like the 2, 3, and 4, like the reveals, none of them have been like, oh my goodness, like when in the first one when Billy shuts that door and looks at him and he gives him that look, like that's a great reveal. None of the rest of them just really like, oh okay, it's Mickey and the mom. Oh okay, it's Roman. Oh okay, it's a cinema nerd and Jill the cousin she doesn't even know. Okay, I don't know that. I would like to see one of the main characters go evil finally, but I feel y'all too. I get it. It's all good.
I mean, I agree with you about
Any
Scream
more
2 and
final
3,
thoughts?
but this one, I love the reveal of Jill. I think it's great, but that's just,
Yeah, I agree.
Any more final thoughts before I announce my pick for sequel
I'm
month?
good.
No, go for it.
I hope I didn't piss off.
Nah, never.
I know y'all love the Scream franchise, but hope I didn't piss y'all off, good brothers.
All good. All good. I shit on House of Wax, so I can't say anything.
Oh, it's all good. But to conclude 2020, I think it's gonna be our last episode of this interesting year. And to conclude sequel month, I'm going to my favorite horror franchise and my favorite entry in that franchise. We're going back to the Saw franchise, Saw 6, my favorite one. And I cannot wait to review that movie. I think it's going to be a really great review and a fun
Got it on my
review.
screen right now, brother.
And we've all done our Saw rankings, and I think all of us like Saw 6. So I'm looking forward to talking about that movie with all of you guys. We really appreciate the support this year. It's meant a lot to us. Big shout out to our super fans. And one more time, I just want to give a quick shout out to Shan. Thank you again for baking us those cookies and sending them to us. That was awesome. They were great. And what was the name of her Etsy site one more time?
Terrifying Treats.
I don't know why I can't remember that. Terrifying Treats on Etsy. Hit her up. She'll bake them and have them sent to you in no time. They're awesome. Thank you for all the support, y'all. Y'all have a good one. Just want to remind everybody,